are you?
in the room this morning.
Hear you. Town crier.
Yes. How are you?
I'm good.
How was your weekend?
It was all right. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Quiet.
Uh-huh.
How are you?
It was all right.
Good.
And quiet.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. You know, nowadays, there's nothing else that you do apart from staying indoors.
I know.
Minimize your movement as much as possible.
This might change soon.
Yes. Hatuwezi ishi hivi.
The pressure is mounting.
You can't live like this. The pressure is mounting. And, the government gets too much pressure from all sides. And this is one of those now.
I don't know if they're going to be able to open up the economy.
They will open up. Look.
There's no choice right now.
Kenya is very good at, and I've been telling you guys this, Kenya is very good at putting things on paper. Okay? So on paper, there'll be a lockdown. Mm-hmm. Avoid going to places. On paper, there's some industries that will not reopen immediately. Mm-hmm. So there'll be a gradual reopening of the economy. But in terms of, you want to go about your business? Well, go about your business.
Carry on.
Carry on. What do you want to do? You want to go to town today and visit someone, your neighbor? Just go ahead.
That's what it looks like. It's gonna be.
Just go ahead. We are going to remove the curfew at night, maybe, starting with other areas apart from the Nairobi metropolitan, because there's no point of having a curfew in Bungoma, for instance, if we are seeing that the cases in Bungoma are low.
Right, and if you see continued rising cases in Nairobi, then that's what we're going to go with, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. So I can see cessation of, there's cessation of movement maybe within the 4 counties may not be lifted immediately, but in terms of night curfew, that may be lifted.
Yeah.
In terms of church, that meeting with the church leaders will lead to something.
Yeah, as I look at it in retrospect, it was a trigger to something else.
Yep.
And it's probably that, the conversation was had and I think decisions were made. We're likely to see certain things open. Schools, I'm not so sure about.
Schools, the candidates,
possibly the candidates in Standard 8 and Form 4 will come back to school. And then it's likely that everybody else will probably wait until next year. But, this is what it looks like. It's going to start opening up. Things are not good, We want to be really serious about it in terms of the economy and what people have to do to get their daily bread. A decision has to be made, which is why, if we want to look at it in retrospect, a lockdown should have happened at the beginning of this.
Now we'll be talking about a situation that has been contained.
Exactly.
A bit better.
Exactly.
Should have been immediate. Pop, drop the hammer, lock down everybody.
Don't even think about it.
Go ahead, test, contain it, and then now say, all right, guys, now go back out, and this is what you'll be doing.
Yeah, because
In
at
2 or
that
3
time
weeks.
when they should have done that, people maybe had worked a little bit, and generally people had a little bit of money to keep them afloat for some time. But they've exhausted all that they had. Everybody has exhausted what they had.
Yep.
And then now, if you want to even think about instituting a lockdown, you're going to lock people up with nothing to eat. And it just doesn't make sense.
And the most the government can afford is, how much again? Is it 2 billion that they're giving out to the 100,000 people?
Yeah. 120,000 people.
120,000 people. This is a dicey one, but we hope for the best.
Yep.
Hoping for the best. What's our number so far?
Right. So the numbers that we're looking at in Kenya, specifically Kenya, with the added 22 cases yesterday. So now Kenya stands at 1,000. Oops, here we go. Kenya at 1,214.
Yes.
And the cases continue to rise with 22 that we saw yesterday. And unfortunately, 1 death occurred yesterday. So what we have now is 51 deaths. And the active cases that we're looking at are 780, with about 383 having been discharged and sent home. Right? So this is what we're looking at now for the country.
Yeah.
If we want to look around the world, however, Brazil seems to be now Brazil taken over as the South American epicenter of all of this, and the numbers of cases having increased dramatically over the last couple of days. And we've seen in the last 6 hours, 1,595 cases. And Brazil has risen to 365,213 cases. And the spike has been in the last 5 days. Don't know what's going on here.
So is it number of new cases?
Yes.
Okay. So they have also ramped up their testing.
They have. They've ramped up their testing, but the fear that they've seen is that it's possible that COVID has been, walking about the country for a while, and they didn't take testing as seriously as they should have taken it, because the deaths are up to 22,746, still significantly lower, about by 10,000 from the highest from the country with the highest deaths in Europe, which is still Italy, and the UK and the Italy. So they're less by about 10,000. However, take into consideration that they got to 22,000 in the last 1 week. So they've seen an increased number of deaths in a very short period of time. They were not recording so many 3 to 4 weeks ago.
Those are many deaths, man.
Yeah. And Brazil was not featuring on this list. And that has risen quite significantly. They're also doing this alongside Mexico. Mexico continues to rise with its numbers, whereby Brazil had 1,500 cases reported in the last 6 hours. Mexico has recorded 2,764. So yes, testing has been ramped up, but it's happening now, whereby it was not happening before. Okay, now, if we want to look at South Africa and look at countries in Africa now, 22,583 cases in South Africa with 429 deaths. They also have been testing quite significantly. Every day, they're rolling out quite a number and making sure that, they're aware of what the footprint looks like for COVID. The lockdown still is in place. And so they're able to test and see where this is. And we saw reports yesterday that saying that also for them, it was clear that it was widespread amongst the community, but they were just not able to take it in because they were not testing. But now that they are really, really testing, this is what we see.
They can see the cases. Did they notice anything like a spike in number of deaths or people requiring critical care?
No, not really, because, their deaths are still standing at just over 400. That's 429. So it was not significant, and this number has remained steady more or less. And it's home care again for a lot of these folks. Very few are going to hospital and in need of critical care. So I think that's interesting. We did hear over the weekends that Donald Trump was a bit upset, and he said, you know what, everybody's talking about the high numbers in the United States because 1,686,436 is what we see in the United States now. And he was feeling a bit pinched, I think. And he said, everybody's talking about the numbers in the United States. The only reason why we have these high numbers is because we're testing quite rigorously. However, the thing is that I think he may have forgotten that the number of deaths comparative to the number of cases for the United States is quite high. And you're not able, he says, look at Africa, they're not testing, they have 5 million cases only because they're only doing a certain number of tests per day. Be that as it may, the number of deaths vis-a-vis the number of cases in Africa is less than 1%. You can't compare that with the United States that is at 10%.
They're already over 100,000, right?
Well, they're at 90 now. They're teetering on 100,000. 99,300 deaths in the U.S. right now. So
that's huge. That's huge.
Is.
That's a huge number. No matter how you look at it. Although the flu season, this is just about 20,000 more than the flu season. So it would have been interesting to see how many people have died of the flu during this time, because this was the flu season. How many people have died of the flu? How many people have died of COVID-19?
Right.
Or could we be saying that these 198,000, 100,000 people are inclusive of the numbers that we'd have expected of the flu? Because the flu usually takes about 70 to 80,000 people. Every year.
In those 6 months, yes. Yeah.
In the States. So it would be interesting to get a comparative analysis and get the numbers as well and see what exactly is happening. 19 minutes after 6 o'clock. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Our live stream is up. Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. Shortly, we take a look at the weather and then newspaper headlines. Good morning.
All right, this Monday morning, it's looking like mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi. We'll see at 15 degrees. Highs of 25 and lows of 14. In Nyeri, it's light rain showers already at 15 degrees. We will see highs of 24 and lows of 14, likely to be a wet Monday throughout Nyeri today. And Nakuru, partly cloudy conditions at 14 degrees, highs of 25 and lows of 13. Eldoret is 12 degrees and partly cloudy, highs of 24 and lows of 12. Kisumu at 20 degrees will take us to highs of 28 today and lows of 19 with partly cloudy conditions through the day. Mombasa is partly cloudy at 25 degrees, showers expected in the afternoon with highs of 28 and lows of 24. 26 degrees in Malindi and partly cloudy. It's going to be a wet afternoon with highs of 29 and lows of 25. Taking a look then into East Africa, in Kampala at 18 degrees. It's clear skies this morning. However, it'll cloud up in the afternoon with rain showers with highs of 27 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam at 24 degrees. It's clear skies right now. 29 degrees the high and lows of 23 with showers in the afternoon. Johannesburg down south at 11 degrees. Clear skies and sunny conditions throughout most of the day with highs of 18 and lows of 5. It'll get quite chilly there in the afternoon. Taking a look at Lagos, where light rain showers already being experienced at 26 degrees. It's going to be a wet day throughout this Eid Monday. 31 degrees the high and lows of 24. Wet conditions carrying on well into Tuesday. Paris at 12 degrees and clear skies all through with highs of 24 and lows of 11. Taking a look into London, where clear skies at 12 degrees will be the order of the day, highs of 25 and lows of 11. And finally for now in Paris at 12 degrees when the sun does come up. We will see highs of 24 and lows of 12. Take a look at other cities in the world and what the weather looks like in a short while.
Okay, it's 27 after 6. This is the situation. This Kenya's biggest conversation in the room this morning. Eric Latif and Nduoko. Let's go to today's proverb. This is from your peoples or your neighbors. I don't know. The Igbo.
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 Mm-hmm. My what? Did you call them my people?
Your people, your neighbors. Yeah. Who are they?
Yeah. Southeastern Nigeria.
So they are your?
They're my almost my relatives even.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what they say, if one does not chew water, he does not know whether. Let me start. If one does not chew water, he doesn't know that water has bones.
Mm-hmm.
What on earth on about?
If
one does not chew water, he doesn't know that water has bones. Explain.
You want me to go through it now, or you want us to wait?
Yeah, no.
Oh, let's start the day. I mean, just from the top of my head, if you don't go through the experience, you're not going to know the nitty-gritty, the intricacies of an experience. If you don't mull through it, if you don't roll it over, you're not going to know what stands ahead.
Yes, that's it.
Isn't it?
Yep. Yep. One who has not experienced life's ups and downs doesn't know that life is hard.
There you go.
Basically, it's like a Swahili one. Aisifuye mvua imemnyea. One who talks about the rain has experienced the rain, has been rained on.
Voila. There you go.
One who praises the rain has been rained on. If
one does not chew water, he will not know that water doesn't.
That water has bones.
There you go.
Interesting one. So let's get to the headlines. Want to start with the standard?
All right. Well, let's have a look at this because it's going to take quite some stuff to look at.
Oh, we are reopening anyway.
Well, I mean, while we're at it, front and center, BBI purge begins. Everybody has a little bit of something to say, and it's a game of tic-tac-toe because they're X's, and in this case, not O's, but checks. It's a bloodbath is what is being called. ODM and Jubilee team up to seize control of committees crucial in constitutional reforms as Raila's party goes after NASA allies working with Deputy President William Ruto. Now, if the National Assembly Majority Leader, Aden Duale, is removed, he will be replaced by Aden Keenan.
Aden Keenan.
Yeah, okay. Keenan. Yeah, sounds almost like something I would say in Nigeria.
Aden Keenan.
Keenan.
Yes.
Okay. National Assembly Majority Whip. If Benjamin Washiali is removed, he will be replaced by Navakolo MP Emmanuel Wangwe. If National Assembly Deputy Majority Whip Cecily Mbarire is removed, she will be replaced by Gathoni Wa Mushomba. If William Cheptumo, who is the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee Chairman, is removed, he will be replaced by Rarieda MP Otienda Amolo. And if Budget and Appropriations Committee Chair Kikuyu MP Kimani Shungwa is removed, he will be replaced by Limuru MP Peter Mwathi. And if Roads and Transport Committee Chair David Kosing, is that P silent?
I think so.
Yeah, it would only make sense, is removed, he will be replaced by Tiati MP William Kamket. All right, so this is what it looks like. And you can say, why do we have to continue like this? And according to Jubilee Party Secretary General Raphael Tuju, he says, we are not in the business of just issuing threats to people. There is no turning back on the matters of disloyal members. How do you punish some disloyal members but spare others? So this is going across the board. And this is what we
If you sweep,
saw
you
was going
sweep.
to happen. Yes, you sweep the corners plus the main, and you don't leave one room out.
Yep.
Okay? So it's likely that this week we're going to the National
This
Assembly.
is something happening in the National Assembly.
Yes.
There are also those that have been playing games and they are in the NASA coalition, especially ODM, and they're also going to
face it.
face the music. According to the minority leader, National Assembly minority whip, the Standard calls him minority leader now, he's a minority whip, Junaid Mohammed, we are going to unite in kicking out all non-aligned committee chairpersons and have them replaced. People like Silvana Sosoro were slotted in various committees by NASA, but they have gone astray. Such people will face
They will face
the
it.
axe. So this is given prominence in page 8 and page 9 of the Standard this morning. Uhuru and Raila moved to align Parliament for BBI. Pro-handshake MPs have been instructed to vote out committee chairpersons to enable the smooth sailing of the reforms document. So basically, we are saying this BBI thing, all right? The reggae is on pause.
Yeah.
As soon as we press play, the dance floor will be ready. Everything will be aligned. So some of those that are likely to lose include Silvana Sosoro of NASA, Aisha Jumwa, Chris Wamalwa, Badi Twalib, Catherine Wambilianga, Nicholas Tindi. These are all NASA people. Minority Whip Junaid Mohammed says homeless people
Wow.
like Silvana Sosoro who are slotted in various committees by NASA, but they have gone astray. We'll kick them out of the committee so that they can stay out for 6 months.
So this is it. Is it a payback for this? Is punishment for disloyalty and merit for loyalty is what is being put on the table here. And it's clear that even if you uttered a word, if you even moved in a direction to suggest that you were dancing a different tune, here you literally face the music.
Yes, music is coming.
Yeah, this one is going to happen.
Music is coming.
It'll be an interesting week.
Oh, yes. Ruto Camp kept out of Uhuru meeting. President's allies rally ahead of next month's PG meeting to ring-fence support for impending purge on rebels. There are conflicting reports about just how many meetings Jubilee party MPs have planned to plot how to kick out party rebels from the House leadership positions. Most Jubilee legislators from Mount Kenya told the Standard that they are aware of the Monday, June 2nd parliamentary group meeting at State House, but sources indicate that another meeting of Jubilee party MPs could be held as early as tomorrow. Yeah, why wait for June 2nd? However, those allied to the DP confess that they have no idea about tomorrow's meeting since nobody has invited them.
So it's still the whole thing of invites. I'm not
Oh, yes.
invited, I'm not going to come.
Yep.
And I'm not going to assume
I'm
that
not
this
aware
meeting
of
had
this
anything
meeting.
to do with me. So I was not aware, so I carried on with my business, as
Yep.
it were. Well, I think we've also seen that the sentiment has been, look, there's a meeting, if you don't come, this means that there's some kind of, I don't know what to call it,
Yep.
disloyalty that you're portraying when you don't attend such. We saw a gentleman being kicked out
Deputy
on
Speaker.
Friday because he didn't attend the
Kindiki.
meeting.
Yes. And it was simple. I mean, when the new whip was speaking and was moving the motion in this, he basically said, look, you have disobeyed the party position. And those that stood up to support the motion are saying, look, this is a political party thing. You've got to remember, okay, that you owe what you do to the party. It's a party that supported you to be the deputy speaker.
It's interesting because because when you look at Sam Pogishio, James Orengo, Sam Ongeri, all kind of said the same thing. They said, look, we kind of understand your position.
We like you, man.
We don't have anything against you. However, you made the right decision at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Okay? For whatever reason you made that decision, that is okay. We're not faulting you for that. But then you must realize where you stand. And the position, this critical position that you hold, would not have allowed you to do something like that. So you still have time, young lad. You still have time to come correct.
Go mend your ways.
Selected in the future.
Find a way of calling the president and just tell him, boss.
It's nothing against you, but I vote yes.
Now the Senate has the task of picking a new deputy speaker. We'll be speaking to the Senate new chief whip, Irungu Kangata, at 9 o'clock to hear what they're thinking about, especially now because they have to fill that position. The party is deliberating on who would fill the position of deputy speaker this week between Senators Charles Kebiru of Kirinyaga and Uasin Gishu's Margaret Kamar. Remember, Charles Kebiru is that man who is an independent senator. Okay? He's independent. He's non-aligned.
Would it be interesting if they
non-aligned but Jubilee leaning?
Yeah, Jubilee leaning was probably what they would look at in terms of an ingredient to make this pie. That would have to be. It would be necessary to be the right Jubilee leaning, because you must understand that there are different directions within Jubilee,
Jubilees,
right?
Yes.
So
Jubilees are different.
There we go.
So either Professor Margaret Kamar or the man from Kirinyaga. It would be interesting if it went to Professor Kamar.
Why would it be interesting?
It's going right there to Uasin Gishu County. She's a senator for Uasin Gishu. This is Eldoret. This is the deputy president's home county.
It's the hotbed.
This is the
Rift Valley
hotbed.
Politics.
Yes. So if actually she's picked, then also that sends another message right there.
It's like a Trojan horse, So
we're
in your territory, and we're using our tools that are from your place to fight our battles. So that's what we're saying. I wouldn't be surprised if it went that way.
Let's see how it goes. Anyway, today is Monday. It's now 6:38 a.m. Is there traffic on the road?
Well, let's see. But people are not coming back until tomorrow morning, because today is still a holiday.
Okay, so people are still out of Nairobi.
Yes. So you want to look at the further Greater Mombasa Road all the way to a small world. There's no traffic whatsoever. Namanga Road at East African Portland Cement. The stage is actually quite free. Empty Matatu is waiting for people to come and take over, but nothing is happening. Still on holiday. We will not see any movement between counties. Looking at Thika Road as well. Easy movement all the way from the turnoff into the CBD. Nothing is going to cause any problems for us this morning as we see it. There's no traffic per se, and everybody's still in bed and enjoying the holiday. We're probably going to see a different situation tomorrow morning. We'll keep you updated as to what it looks like throughout this morning in terms of traffic in Nairobi and around the country. So you want to keep it here. If you do see something that we need to know about, do let us know. It's interesting because over the weekend we saw quite a number of accidents on Mombasa Road in the span of very few hours, guys. So we know that there's no movement in quotes, but we really need you to take it easy. The temptation is to go a lot faster than you normally would, but unfortunately has ended in death for very many people between Friday and Saturday. So please take it easy. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let's know what you see and we'll keep everybody informed.
It's 20 to 7. This is a situation in its biggest conversation. the nation. Uhuru's plan to reopen Kenya.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's a roadmap to easing of restrictions and call for personal discipline in obeying health. This
mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Speech. And he came out and said, look, guys, so we need to basically take personal responsibility. When you're told, don't shake hands, don't shake hands. When you're told, sneeze into your elbow, sneeze into your elbow. When you're told, keep social distance and physical distance, keep physical distance. If this disease treats us abnormally, we will know that it's because we did not listen.
Right.
It's because of me, Uhuru, Matiang'i, and you, and the other person that did not listen to what we were told by the experts. But we cannot live like this forever. No. This is a bit too much. He's also feeling maybe too restricted.
You think so? He's feeling restricted?
Cabin fever.
Well, I think he's getting a lot of pushback. I think, look, the general feeling is that there's a lot of pushback across sector, industry, this, that, the other thing. There are people who are crying because of hunger. There are people who've lost their jobs, and they're saying, look, people can't even apply for jobs because who's hiring right now? People can't do business because who's buying? So I think there's a lot of pushback that is coming. At the same time, though, experts are urging caution. Now, when there were these measures put in place, people didn't exercise this caution.
Yep.
Do you mean to tell me that it's when now they start to release measures that this caution will be exercised? Sorry to say that if the testing continues, I mean, this is what we've heard, that testing will continue, testing will be ramped up, we're likely to see an increase of cases. It doesn't matter where you want to look at it in the world, everywhere, because we could say that there were different situations in different countries. But on this particular thing, with the release of measures for countries whereby there were tight measures that were instituted, once they began to release them, whether you want to deem them premature or not, we saw a spike in cases. It happened in the UK. It happened in the US. It happened in Germany. It happened in South Africa. It happened in Ghana. It happened in China. So this is what we are going to see. And I don't think anybody should be surprised that if we start to see a releasing of these measures, we are going to see an increase in cases.
Yep.
And I think this is the reason why experts are saying they're urging that people exercise caution. Still do the things that, because we don't know what it's going to be. We don't know if it's going to be after this initial 21 days, rather the extended 21 days that they're going to say, okay, start opening up a series of businesses. Certain people in certain sectors can start going back to work. However they're going to open it up, whether certain sections of schools can open, especially for the candidates. If that can happen, then they're asking, still do the things that we've been asking you to do. Now, if they're going to increase testing, we are going to see an increase in the number.
We'll definitely see an increase in the number of positive cases.
Yes.
The question is whether we'll get an increase in the number of people who require critical care in hospital. Right. Now that we've been talking about, the kind of the population that is completely vulnerable, and that's the older population. So far, what we are seeing is the younger population is the one that is testing positive in greater numbers, and the older population are also testing positive, also in great numbers, but not as great as the younger ones. So if we get to a point where now we see a spike in positive cases within the older population or the vulnerable population, even people with pre-existing conditions, then that will be something. However, I think this is just a reality. Everybody is reopening in the world.
It's true. The curve has not been reached in Kenya.
Yep.
We hear the Ministry of Health still saying that we've not reached the infection peak.
Yep.
I mean, we heard Dr. Moth say the other day that, we're looking at August, September to reach the peak, and we're looking at then maybe 200 cases a day. All right, that could be. The question that we have to ask ourselves, look, it's not even an issue of does the economy need to open up, because that is clear that it does. Otherwise, as morbid as it sounds, people are going to start dying of hunger. Okay? People are going to lose hope in terms of what is going to, what they're going to be able to depend on for the future. Something needs to be done economically to get the drivers back in. Yes, that needs to happen. But at the same time, you're still dealing with having not reached peak in Kenya.
Kenya's economy is larger than the economy of Uganda, the economy of Rwanda. So this whole story of saying that, we can't sustain our economy, really? Maybe this is the government just trying to run away from its own responsibility. This is a case where the government is supposed to be working for the people, and the government has just gotten to a point where it's like,
the people have to be able to work for themselves.
Too much work, man. Let the people work for themselves.
It could have been done, Eric.
Because look at Rwanda, look at Uganda. Uganda, Museveni has not said anything about that. Museveni has said, look, let's even talk about the amount of ugali you can eat, okay? So let's not have this argument. Here is ugali. Weigh this ugali. Let me cut this piece. Look at this piece. Can you eat this ugali? Yes. Let's weigh this piece. This is how much ugali you can. So this one piece of ugali can actually serve. It's a meal for X number of people. And he's still arguing on that point and saying,
we're not
come on.
Up yet.
Yeah, hunker down. We've got to fight this thing. And here we are as a country. And our argument here is, people are losing jobs, people are losing livelihoods. And the only people that we can support are X number of people. We have, we are sending, is it how many? 800,000 people who are the vulnerable, the elderly and all. It's actually less than that.
120,000 people is who they're going to be feeding.
There's that. There's the new 120. And then there's the older one, the older population, right. Yes, and the persons living with severe disability and all. So in total, basically,
1 million people.
Yeah. Those are the only people that we can take care of.
Out of 53.
And even those, the 100,000 people, we're giving them 2,000 bob in 2 weeks. It's 1,000 bob a week. If you actually think about 1,000 bob a week is still not a small amount of money. Somebody can go and do shopping and they can get food for a week.
Right.
However, I think this is a point where the government is basically just looking at it and seeing these people are going to start demanding that we work, and we don't want to work.
This is unfortunate because they're dealing with a situation that they've never been in before.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about the COVID pandemic. You're right, absolutely. And I would say they're dealing with a situation where you actually have to get things done. And at this point, everybody is watching you.
Yep.
Everybody's waiting to
trying
see.
to distract us with BBI, with Jubilee. We're still coming back to
everything is at a standstill. So what have you done about this? We are waiting. We're waiting because really, you're the only ones who are driving it. What do you want us to do?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that measures that should have been put in place were not. And we've been trying to play catch up with something that is running 3-4 times faster than us, faster than the government at this point, which is this pandemic, saying, here you are doing this. Well, here I am. I'm about a kilometer ahead away of you, right?
This was an opportunity for the government to regain its trust with the people. And I think we're just letting it pass.
We're losing the fight to COVID?
We're losing it's the government losing the fight to regain its trust with the citizenry. We spoke to a journalist in Tanzania and he told us, well, people in Tanzania, when the government told them to do this, they're like, okay, that's what we're going to do. Mutahi Kagwe, the CS, was giving examples. He gave an example of countries including China and Italy, which are up and running, but only because residents are disciplined and they do not need to be policed. Can you imagine a Kenyan taking herself to a quarantine center for faulting the rules? For them, this is something that they practice willingly. They are taking individual responsibility. In China, for instance, for one to leave the house apart from wearing a face mask, they must ensure that their health pass is green. The health passes guide their daily life. The passes are linked to their cell phone numbers, the last name, passport number, and indicate either red or green. Safe to leave the house or not. If one reports an unusual temperature or had close contact with an infected person, then the pass shows red and the person cannot be allowed to leave the house. The government tracks them using these passes. Now, this is what Mr. Mutahi Kagwe is telling us. Look, you've got to be self-disciplined. Why is it that Kenyans are not appearing to be self-disciplined?
You've never given them a reason. Look, truth be told, you know what? You would find that Kenyans in their homes, whereby they have a responsibility, are extremely disciplined. They know what needs to be done. They follow, get this done out there. But the truth of the matter is that once your authority over whom the institution that is lauding this authority then over you, and within whom you have a deficit of trust, look, you can shout from here until kingdom come, but they're just not going to listen to what you have to say. That's why it is that you tell people to go home, you're going to have people in Utawala on the street until 9 o'clock selling their wares. Because what are you telling them? Are you giving them an option? No, you're not. Did you have an opportunity to
And the conversation is always that back and forth. So you want me to stay at home and then what?
You never gave them an opportunity before to prove your worth or prove your worth, your salt in terms of what you want them to do before. So then here you are basically saying, who is the blame going to be put on now? We need to open up the economy. We tried. You didn't try. With what you were given, how much did you do?
What did you actually
What
do?
did you actually achieve?
What can you say has happened since
what has happened?
the 15th of March to today,
What has
25th of
changed?
May?
What has
have you
changed
seen
if
the
not the
government
500,000 people have lost their jobs already in Kenya, or that people are already going hungry? You know what? Come to think of it, what exactly has happened?
Yeah. What has the government done?
What
in that
exactly
time?
has happened?
So you hear, yes, there's some people. The other day there was a story that people who were supposed to be receiving this money for the elderly have also not been receiving money for the elderly because there was connivance by the chiefs and some officials to get fake people.
What?
So, yes,
Okay.
you find that the wrong people are receiving this money. All right? Playing games by the social workers and the chiefs. They created a whole list of fakes.
Who
So
don't
money is
exist.
being sent, but it's not going to the intended recipient. Same thing has happened. Even the president himself acknowledged the other day. Same thing happens when you talk about relief food. Government releases money for relief food. That is played here in Nairobi. Oh, now you, Ndu, can you go and source for maize? Then you get gunny bags. Then let's brand them, GOK. Then all that money is basically spent here on that. Buying the maize, buying the gunny bags, packaging and repackaging. And then there's get, how many trucks do you have? Your friend has how many trucks? 20. We need
We'll use
40.
those ones.
So we get this 20 and then so-and-so's 20. All that money, half of the relief money goes into this administrative stuff. Then the money that gets to the ground, the food that gets to the ground is also being skirted away by the chiefs. So this is what we know government to be.
This is the truth. But what has happened with speed and alacrity is that we've seen members of the Senate having been thrown out. That one has happened. Done.
Chap chap.
Done. That's the
Chap, chap.
process followed. Move. Go. That has happened. But then in terms of taking care of the people over which these individuals that you want to get correct
Yeah.
are going to govern,
Yeah.
honestly speaking, there's a problem here.
Let's come back to that conversation. All right, after 7. Other
will.
headlines.
All right. Other headlines that we look at here. COVID-19 restrictions, a deal blow to this year's Eid al-Fitr celebrations. It's a different way of doing things now, obviously, and people would not have gone out to celebrate in the throngs that they would have yesterday having been the main celebration. That has definitely changed in the way things are being done. And it just goes to point to the fact that, traditions also will change. These are some of the things that people will actually adopt in the near future when we look at things like weddings and funerals. For some reason, I don't see a lot of those things changing, even after measures.
I'm telling you, the day you're told now you're free, the next thing you're going to have is weddings.
You see, people are going to come back and say the fanfare.
People wearing kitenges and are going for weddings and doing that party. The jig.
People are waiting to come back to that.
Oh, yes. Open bars today.
Or even with them not open, people are still in the bar.
Imagine.
So-
Just today, just say, all right, so the restriction on operation of bars has been lifted.
Finish.
Go to Kamaki's. There'll be traffic from Embakasi all the way to Thika Road on the bypass because people are lining up. Weka mbuzi, we are celebrating.
We have come out.
We have come out. COVID imeisha. This, my friend, you're joking.
Oh, okay. It seems that, okay, look, the cabin fever that is being experienced by so many people is quite something. So maybe people will still want to come back and drink away and then, continue enjoying. So maybe these events will come back into the limelight. I would have thought that people would have seen that the way we originally or traditionally did things would change and maybe want to stick to those. I do hope that people will maintain social distance and also maintain hygiene. But let's see.
People will, but people will forget that this is it's a contact disease, right? So we'll assume that it's an airborne disease. We'll assume like it's transmitted like cholera. So yeah, you'll shake hands as long as you wash your hands.
Right. And so maybe it will be the question like, have you washed your hands?
And then you'll wash your hands once and do everything else and touch all of the surfaces and sneeze and touch your face and forget and say, you know what, I have not eaten a fruit. And you'll forget. And you'll say, I've been wearing a mask.
Then you'll forget.
As I was walking. And then I sat here and I was talking to my friends and I had to remove my mask because, they can't hear me.
I can't breathe.
And I can't breathe. And this thing is very, very uncomfortable. So I had to do something.
That's what we see changing.
The interesting headline on the Standard, and this is on page 4, sloppy SGR deal that enriched Chinese firm. Leaked documents expose how Africa Star, the company that operates passenger services on the Nairobi-Mombasa route, took advantage of a skewed contract with the Kenya Railways to fleece desperate travelers in an elaborate ticketing scandal.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
That already sounds elaborate and scandalous. Are you ready for this? KRC, the Kenya Railways, entered a lopsided contract on the management of passenger operations for the SGR, exposing it to huge losses and fraud. According to recently leaked documents in the Standard's possession, the directors of the KRC board were told of glaring anomalies in ticketing in a 2018 meeting. Africa Star Railways, the Chinese operator of the SGR, ran largely unchecked operations where train cabins would routinely be artificially fully booked. As a result, the Nairobi-Mombasa passenger train appeared almost always packed, a situation chalked up to Kenyans' excitement to ride the train, only for agents to later sell the ticket to desperate travelers at premium rates. In instances where there were no buyers of the fraudulent tickets, the officials would report that there had been cancellations to generate refunds. As a result, the exposure to losses was nil. So basically, people were just playing games with the tickets.
Yeah.
And remember that time, you wanted to book to board the SGR.
You couldn't.
My friend, you go to the station at Syokimau, you go to whatever station, it's full, and you're told, this one for when? This one is already it's full.
No, it can't.
It's full. Yeah. And then as you're walking out, someone tells you, but there's someone who's selling tickets. I think somebody who had tickets and they're looking to offload them. But instead of paying for the ticket for 700 bob, you're told pay 1,200 or whatever amount. Now, these are the games that they were playing.
Pay first class.
Apparently. Now, I do not know how these were. It was now connivance between officials and those unscrupulous dealers. According to documents, audits on the operations uncovered other instances of mega fraud involving bookings, including tickets being issued without names, meaning anyone could use them.
So Eric can be Ndu.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
The ticket's just issued to one adult. So the adult that comes in with that ticket, the ticket should basically have your name and your seat number and the coach. Adults would be allocated the discounted child tickets, which before they were abolished were being sold at half the regular price, specifically, and a promotional tariff. Adult tickets cost 700 and kids tickets were 350. And then you'd find an adult called Ndu has paid 350 and has boarded the train. Games.
Telling you.
Games.
So, what is this? Is it there or is it not there?
And they have a free hand. Basically, the operator has a free hand.
They can do whatever they want.
Yep. There was absolutely no check and balance, and the Kenya Railways Company has no oversight over them. You've given them the deal. They're supposed to operate. They're supposed to report to you how much they've made at the end of the year. If they report a loss at the end of the year, shauri yenu, and you are supposed to pay them.
Regardless.
Yep.
Well, just so you know, you were looking for money, The emergency kitty has hit 3.7 billion shillings, and you're asking...
Those guys.
You're asking, where is this money going? 3.7 billion, and that's the question. Who has been helped? When are they going to help? They keep saying we're going to roll it out. When is it going to happen?
Shockingly, I heard Mutahi Kagwe on Saturday speaking in Machakos on Friday.
On Friday, yes.
And he was appealing to this fund to come to their rescue.
Surely.
We need PPEs, and I'd really like to appeal to the emergency fund.
Give us some money.
To give us some money.
Good grief.
So who are they?
Who is the money for? Watch this space.
The first thing is that I think it was wrong. Among the TORs for that committee was that it was going to help the government in procuring PPEs and all. And I think that was wrong. A harambe should be direct for people. We cannot be doing a harambe for the government.
No.
Today's proverb, as we come to the top of the hour, is from Igbo in Nigeria. If one does not chew water, he doesn't know that water has bones.
There you go.
Say it in pidgin.
If you not chew water, you don't know, say, water get bone.
If you not chew water.
If you not chew water, you not go no say, water get bone.
Okay. If one doesn't chew water, he does not know that water has bone. You're asking yourself whether water has bone. You haven't chewed water. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
less than 10 minutes ago at the Utawala junction between a bus and a small vehicle. No traffic police on the scene. No emergency services just yet. We don't know if this is a fatal accident, and we don't know if there, because of that, any casualties. But hopefully that will be sorted out soon. The roads are empty, folks, and in some parts quite slippery. So we need to be careful today, more than any other day. The fog's quite low on Mombasa Road as well, so you need to have your fog lights on if you will be leaving, if you will be going anywhere. But please be careful. Let it not get beyond one accident so far. It looks like Mombasa and Kisumu are ghost towns this morning. Nobody's out, and very, very clear roads within the CBDs of both and out of the city. All right. I think it needs to be checked, guys, in terms of our speed. Let's take a look at what it looks like in a short while. But for now, we don't have much in terms of traffic. Spice of MKE, that's how you can get in touch with us. Let us know what it is that you see.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times.
It's 2.5 minutes after 7 o'clock.
Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair.
Look at the headlines and what's interesting, what's coming up bigly in the papers, right?
Right.
DCI pursue new leads on Kenei's death. You remember Kenei?
Isn't it weird that you had to use that phrase just now? Do you remember Kenei?
Yeah.
That was a story that shook the nation.
He was in the headlines.
Suddenly,
that's gone.
Done.
Suddenly, that story is gone.
But it's back now.
Kenei is Sergeant Kipyegon Kenei, who was attached to the office of the Deputy President, who died mysteriously last year. His house was found dead, and his house in Imara Daima was buried. And the probe was linked to what was happening at the office of the Deputy President with that whole arms dealer scandal. All right? Now, DCI detectives on Saturday evening visited that house, and residents say the officers went to the house in Villa Franca Estate, Imara Daima, and spent the better part of the night. Huh?
Why?
The visit to the house adds to many others by the officers in the course of the investigation, but it's the latest after a lull on the probe occasioned by, among others, the COVID-19 pandemic. An insider said the detectives were in final stages of the probe, adding, "Watch this space," without elaborating. This came as it emerged that another team from the homicide unit had joined the probe. The DCI boss, George Kinoti, who residents said was among those who visited the scene, refused to comment on the new developments. "Just wait for the outcome. The probe is ongoing," he said. Nyumba Kumi chairman of Villa Franca Twiga Court, Peter Amunga, said he heard reports that Mr. Kinoti was with the probe team during the visit to Kenei's house. There were reports that Kinoti was present. The car that was at the scene is alleged to be his. "I did not see him alight from his car, but I know that his colleagues, since they were here, I know his colleagues because they were here last time. They told us they were going to be here for a long time because they had some new leads, but they refused to reveal the same." The house has been under guard since the body of the late officer was found on February 20th. So it's still a crime scene.
Wow.
It's still a crime scene. So it's interesting to see how this investigation unfolds. What just came to my mind is the landlord. Now that this house is still a crime scene, what became of the landlord's rent? Who's paying his rent?
Which should have been paid to him. Right. So, I mean, I think in such circumstances, that kind of remains in limbo until they can figure out what was going on.
So basically, we're just saying this house is unoccupied.
Yes. It's unoccupied.
And you cannot rent it out.
No, you can't, because it's a crime.
So what happens
under the law? It's under the for now. It becomes a part of legal.
It's fine,
right?
But remember that this is a commercial property,
right? But the law in this case supersedes whatever tenets of the commercial property in this case, because the state now is dealing with this.
The state can do all it wants, and I have no problem. But can the state pay me?
The state pay you because the state did not ask for that. The state did not ask.
Neither
that this
did I.
Incident happened here.
Neither did I.
Right? So we're all understanding at this point. We come to an understanding here that look, a murder, which is then it's however you want to look at it, whether somebody committed it or however, capital offense. Capital, the state takes over because they're trying to then find out what happened, right? So then you can't come in and then claim a certain thing. It doesn't matter where it was, whether it's commercial property, private property, whatever. They take over at that point and they deal with it. When that is finished, then business as usual.
Can you imagine that you are the landlord, right? And then this investigation takes a year. We know how long investigations take. So this house remains under guard and is a crime scene for a year.
Unfortunately.
And you're just sitting there and wondering, okay, I did not occasion this to happen.
For this to happen, for sure.
And now here we are. And I'm not getting an income.
I know.
Maybe this was a critical part of my income. Maybe I've even lost the other sources of income with this COVID-19.
It's an unfortunate thing.
This could have been one very good one. Even if I'd have given the occupant some, rent rebates, but at least I'd be getting something. Now there's nothing. Remember, this is taking me to that case in Nakuru where there's a woman who died, and then there's a case in court. A lawyer is accused of working with somebody, a former friend of the deceased, who went and changed the property, and they took over this property, and now that property was taken over by investigators. An entire commercial building, several floors up in Nakuru, was taken over, and it was called a crime scene. Not because the woman died there, but because it's in the center of this property has been transferred.
Yeah.
So now tenants are out.
Yeah, because it's part of the investigation, right? It could lead to something. Unfortunately, I mean, it's the law is an ass, as they say. This is one of those things that you can't really do anything about. You would wish that you could, but you can't. On the same page of the Standard, it seems that Governor Sonko, is still the governor of Nairobi County, right? Or Nairobi Metropolitan
County,
as it were. County. He's still the governor of Nairobi County. He's still county. And he now recalls the bill meant to fund metropolis services. The political games over funding to the Nairobi Metropolitan Services for transferred functions have intensified. A new supplementary appropriations bill presented to the County Assembly last Wednesday has been recalled, with slightly over a month left to the end of the financial year. In the new bill, NMS, led by Mohammed Badi, has been allocated 3.5 billion shillings for its operations for the current 2019-2020 financial year that lapses in June. But even before it could be committed to the Assembly for consideration, the new bill was withdrawn. It has been forwarded to the Assembly for consideration following a consultative meeting between representatives from the City Hall and NMS, which was aimed at unlocking the financial stalemate. Both parties agreed to the allocations that were later forwarded to the Assembly. So they initially agreed, was forwarded to Assembly. The meeting was held after an earlier attempt by the County Assembly to allocate NMS 15 billion in April failed after Governor Mike Sonko declined to assent to the appropriations bill. Instead, Sonko drafted a new bill to ensure operationalization of the NMS. An MCA intimated to the Standard that the bill has been recalled due to the continued wrangles pitting Speaker Beatrice Elachi and the governor. From my understanding, and I quote, the bill was recalled after the Assembly poked holes into it. The way this thing is playing out, it is pointing at a continuation of the battle between the governor and the Speaker.
Who's saying this?
According to an MCA who intimated to the Standard.
So this is...
And he sought anonymity. Committee.
So this is not a Badi Sonko, it's an Elachi Sonko bout.
It's a play out of their bout. I mean, that it has always been, right? From time immemorial, they've always had a tiff back and forth. So this is just a continuation of such as it's being put out by this anonymous MCA.
So the initial bill that Sonko rejected had allocated 15 billion.
Yes.
15 billion to the NMS. Now this new one...
For those, but you remember the contention was it had to be for those 4 functions.
Yeah,
right?
And the NMS appeared to be taking over many
for
more.
everything. Yes.
And now this one is for 3.5B, and Sonko has recalled it.
Yes.
You've got to recognize, man.
I'm the governor.
Yeah.
And I can do this.
In law, a bill will be brought to Parliament by the executive.
But what happens in the meantime is that the county or the metropolitan services cannot move, cannot do anything because the funds are not been allocated.
Let them get money from their parent, from the mother, national government.
They should get money from the mama.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sort out you go get money from there until you recognize that Sonko is the boss.
And he's pulling all the stops, Sonko. And interestingly enough, he's not doing anything that is outside of the law.
Yeah.
He's actually entitled to these moves that he has pulled. And whoever is advising him it would appear quite well.
So we were speaking with Dr. Marcy last week when we went all the way to Mandera and looked at the county headquarters in Mandera. And how much was it? 435 million or something like that, or 455 or something.
455 million.
And then we compared it to Makueni, which was
135 million.
135 million. So let's now compare it to Kilifi.
Okay.
Kilifi has spent 500 million shillings for the medical complex. It was unveiled by the governor just the other day. And the governor has now come out to defend his administration over claims of graft in the construction of a hospital complex, saying procurement was above board. Kingi explained that when the county government came into being after the 2013 election, the health sector was on its knees and it lacked critical facilities such as HDUs and ICUs. To address these challenges, the county embarked on an ambitious project. So he's explaining that due to budgetary competing needs, the project was executed in 2 phases, and the county government advertised the tender for the first phase in local dailies in November 2016, which attracted 4 bidders. The successful bidder was awarded the tender, and none of the losing bidders filed complaints, according to Kingi. Nobody complained at that point. In 2019, he explained the county government advertised the tender for the second phase on its official website and also on the public procurement information portal as per the law, and only 1 bidder has responded. And after being subjected to the procurement procedures, the bidder was successful and has been awarded. Now, because COVID came and hit our county Kilifi, and it wasn't spared, in an effort to effectively prepare ourselves for this disease, the county government converted part of the first phase of the medical complex into a temporary COVID-19 medical complex. And this is what he was unveiling the other day. Okay. Now, the issue here is EACC has delivered a letter to the county government saying that they are investigating allegations of irregular procurement on the complex and is demanding files relating to the same. The issue, that complex is actually quite big. Okay, it's a big complex. Phase 1 was, phase 2 is going to cost 385 million.
Crazy.
Officials say the initial cost was 300 million, but the figure signed in the contract in 2017 was 400. It's just a difference of 1, just the number 1. 300.
Oh, really? It's just the difference in the number 1.
Yeah, it's just 1. I mean, 3, 4. This is the cost of the phase 1 and the probe as the county government embarks on phase 2, which is going to be 385. So in total, this thing is going to cost 400 plus 385. It is 785 million shillings. Hospital complex. Close to $1 billion.
I don't know.
Shillings.
There's no smoke without fire. I mean, whoever coined that phrase knew what they were saying. There was fire at some point. There's something that has gone wrong, and by the time you see another, and that could be the rationale. Just the one, a decimal point. Just move it over. No big deal here. At the end of the day, we'll get a facility, right?
Yep.
But do we have one now?
Now, yeah.
It's being used for COVID. After COVID.
So after COVID, now it becomes the proper hospital.
Okay. So it was used for
this
that.
hospital will be a hospital. It's not that it was a hostel or a catering college that was converted for COVID as a hospital, it's actually a hospital complex. The issue is in the pricing.
Right.
When you talk about this facility basically costing you 700 million shillings,
could less have been used.
Could less have been used.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Yeah, that's it.
It's always the issue.
Can we justify this? Can we justify 785? And even that, the first initial cost was estimated at 300 million. Why does the figure go when it's now being signed up
to 700 million?
To 400 at that point.
And maybe it's time, because there should be a standard, right? To say that in order for us to have a hospital with bed capacity of 100 beds
and the other,
fully stocked, medicinal equipment, etc., all across the board, shouldn't cost more than 150 shillings, because we've seen it done in other parts of the country. It can be done. So I think there should be a set standard. If this is what you're building, we should not go past this particular threshold. If this is what we're building, we shouldn't go past. The minute it does, then there's something for question here. You can't say that 700 million shillings was spent on a hospital and then you can't even see what
it's in the same country.
Same country.
We know where
same
cement.
Materials.
We know cement is coming from several cement companies, right? And we know Kilifi has quarries.
There you go.
So some of this stuff is actually being gotten locally. It's not being imported. Cement is here. We are talking about, there's a lot that's actually being done locally.
It should be that there should be a standard, honestly, because there are too many of these things going on. And then they even spent money on one that's being used to feed chickens in Nakuru. So, here we go. It really did. So, honestly, when you look at some of these things, you want to cry.
This is something interesting, because we're going to be having a conversation on corruption in the next half hour.
Yeah.
On what's happening in terms of the fight against corruption. So here is EACC. It has written to the Kilifi County government. This is both the Twali Mbarak, the EACC CEO, says they're investigating the hospital and the equipment supplied with an open mind to establish whether it was value for money. By the time EACC has written a letter and they're saying that they have heard reports, there's something.
I see ACC that I see a lot more of these cases coming up in the next few months.
Oh yes.
The landmark ruling was not just a ruling for somebody to say, all right, let's do some work in the courts. I think that despite that, then a lot of properties, a lot of questions are going to be asked, and you'll see then a lot of the institutions established, whether they be medical facilities, hotels, whatever, questions will be asked, because then if 300 million was touted and 700 million was supposedly used, they're going to start asking questions about that 400 million, number one. Number two, they're going to start looking at individuals who now surrounded these particular projects. And if they have a little extra shilling in their pocket, they're going to be asking questions. And if they're not able to prove where it came from, guess what?
Things. 17 minutes after 7. Let's take a look at weather shortly, and then the conversation continues. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. www.spicefm.co.ke, SpiceFM KE on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. Our live stream is up, as well as Instagram, SpiceFM KE. You can call 0719 012 600. Eid Mubarak.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Nairobi, and it's going to be a wet morning in some parts, mostly cloudy conditions in other parts, and then we will see a blanket of rain fall down around the city. 25 degrees the high and lows of 14 today. In Nyeri today at 15 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions, highs of 24 and lows of 14 with showers in the afternoon. Nakuru at 14 degrees currently, we'll see highs of 25 25 and lows of 13 with partly cloudy conditions all round. Eldoret, partly cloudy at 13 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 12. In Kisumu at 19 degrees, it's clear conditions all through, highs of 28 and lows of 19. In Mombasa at 26 degrees, it's partly cloudy. It's going to be a wet afternoon though, with highs of 28 and lows of 24. It'll be wet in Malindi later on as well, with highs of 29 and lows of 25, currently standing at 27 degrees. Kampala is mostly sunny at 19 degrees. Rain showers expected later with highs of 27 and lows of 19. It's going to be a wet afternoon in Dar es Salaam with highs of 29 and lows of 23, and currently standing at 24 degrees with mostly sunny conditions. In Johannesburg, we'll see 11 degrees as the constant. Clear skies and sunny conditions all through with highs of 18 and lows of 6. Taking a look then into Lagos right now, where it's experiencing light rain showers throughout the city. At 25 degrees, we'll see highs of 31 and lows of 24. A wet afternoon already forecasted for most of the day, going well into Tuesday.
Shortly, looking at these cases, and especially looking at there was a story in the Standard in the papers just the other day on how the EACC has moved to court and sought to have a house barred from any kind of transfer and transaction somewhere in Nairobi.
A house.
And in this house there is the link between governor and the daughter and the developer. Who's the landlord? We'll be looking at
Who?
Yeah, there's somebody who's receiving money, and then there's a question of why you the one who's receiving the money and all those kind of things.
I think it's just strange that these games continue to be played, right? And I think also that the general thought or the general idea is that millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions are, siphoned out. That should be government money that's going towards the development of the people, right? That's where it should be going. I mean, we're not talking about Ndu robbing Eric, right? You're basically talking about an individual who maybe was given the mandate to do something for the people by the authority of the government in that position, then deciding, all right, perhaps the people of Kenya don't need this money. So what I'm going to do with it is buy a house or three and then put that under my own ownership, and I'll do what I can with that. I think the general thought is that you can buy your way out of these conversations, mostly in Kenya. And truth be told, that's the way it has been for some time. And then looking at agencies such as the EACC or, Office of the
DPP,
DCI.
DCI.
And DCI to say that, they're not going to really follow this. And that has been the case, that they didn't really follow what was going on.
Yeah.
However, I think they may have changed a little bit, whereby they're saying, okay,
things are different.
Allow this to continue anymore, right? Are different, and you're not just going to be able to walk away. I still do think that the stance has actually shifted, whereby we're saying, okay, we don't necessarily want to prosecute you, right?
Yeah.
We don't necessarily want to throw you in jail or even have you pay a fine. We're just going to say that which you took, just bring it back to allow us then to continue our job, and then you can carry on and go free. I don't think individuals who have been in this practice over time realize the resolve of agencies such as the EACC. These folks, I think, are really quite serious about the work that they're doing now and saying, for long we've been touted as being unserious.
The question is, are they going to win this fight? I mean, so you come out, guns blazing, all your fangs are out, and you're making all the noise, like a rabid dog. And then?
It depends on what the resolve for the fight is. If it is to jail people, then that may not happen because you have the whole legal and judicial process to deal with, right? If you want to jail people and leave them in jail for the rest of their lives, I don't think that's going to work. However, that's why I think this different stance has been taken, because I think the realization has been that, okay, to be able to convict one individual can take up to 10 years. Even this landmark ruling that we're talking about that came into, how long has it been in?
10
years. The gentleman has been roaming free. Has he been behind bars? No. He's been enjoying his life. Has his lifestyle changed? No. what has happened? Now this money that he's been able to garner over time has been taken away from him because they realize this is what we are able to do. These other things that we've been trying to do in the past have not worked, and maybe I stand to be corrected. But clearly it has not worked. We have cases that we had the EACC CEO tell us, look, this thing is hard. We've had cases here for 22, 23, 24, 25 years. We've not gotten convictions. We're trying to get one man behind bars. By the time you're done, he's had children, grandchildren.
But
he's
in
lived
some
his
cases,
life.
when it comes about asset recovery and freezing of assets, that's one.
That's
okay, and that's what they want. The low-hanging fruit. But then there's still the matter of taking somebody to court over corruption. Because when you actually go and take somebody to court over corruption, this is abuse of office and all these other things of fraudulently obtaining. That we still have a way to go.
Long way to go.
Look at this case, for example. So the EACC was really proud of its work on the 21st of May, and it went ahead and tweeted that the EACC has obtained orders preserving a property in Loresho bought for 35 million shillings using funds embezzled from Migori County by Jared Kwaga, a suspected proxy of the Governor Obado. Kwaga, together with his family members, had incorporated many companies to fraudulently trade with the county. It was, however, established that the tenant of the said Loresho property owned by Mr. Kwaga actually paid rent to Evelyn Zachary, who is Governor Obado's daughter. Okay. EACC has reasonable suspicion to believe that the governor is a true beneficiary of this. The obtained preservation orders will ensure that the property will not be transferred, disposed, or in any other way dealt with to defeat the cause of justice before EACC completes its investigations and commences civil proceedings. All right. So this is very direct. So you're saying we are linking the person who owns this property on record legally is Nduoko. Nduoko is also a director or is linked to companies. And these companies have done some work with the county government. Company A did, construction of road. Company B did building of a hospital. Company C supplied water, like that. And then, in this property, which was bought for 35 million shillings, there's a tenant. This tenant is paying rent. However, this tenant is not paying rent to Nduoko. He's paying rent to Nduoko's daughter. So who exactly? And no, not even Nduoko's daughter. He's paying rent to Governor Eric Latif's daughter. So who's the beneficiary of this?
Governor Eric Latif.
Bas. Because there is business with the governor's county, and that there's a whole direct linkage here.
Right. So they're connecting. They're connecting the dots. This investigation is actually about dot connecting here to say who, at the end of the day, who's sitting. Where is the queen bee? All the worker bees are running around doing whatever they need to do, but they're paying homage to somebody. And that individual is who they're looking for at the end of the day. But the thing is, I don't think the resolve at this point, I think they've seen that any resolve that they may have had, and like we said, we're going to speak to somebody in a short while, but any resolve they may have had to convict for corruption and fraudulently obtaining, etc., I think has watered down because they've seen that it takes time. The EACC, for example, then has to hand over to DPP. They have to involve DCI at some point, this, that, the other thing. Evidence has to be brought forward.
And then when you go to court,
then when you get to court, the process is headache-inducing. So at this point, you'd say, if we are going to then focus on asset recovery, then maybe that's what we focus on for some time, and then maybe hopefully at some point a miracle will happen. No. You take it to court, the case is lost.
As they wait.
Take them to court, the whole to get one conviction or even one case settled in court.
If it's going to take us 10 years, take the case to court in 2020. At least you're looking at 2030. If you don't take the case to court in 2020 and wait until 2025, you're looking at 2035.
So we might as well start now.
Just
what
start
you're
it.
saying.
Just let it go in that queue.
There. But in the meantime, let he or she return these assets to us.
And also, maybe also act as a deterrent when you go ahead and publicize something like this, because the EACC knows very well that this is an allegation. They haven't even completed their own investigations, all right? But they've gone ahead to court and said, we have obtained some temporary orders, and these orders are telling us this and the other. When you publicize that, you think in the public domain, people are saying, this is just an allegation, it's going to take a while. No, people are already thinking, So this is what the governor is doing. So this is what governors are also doing. Then you also start looking at others. And you see, okay, So I see there's a connection between this governor and a certain building that we know in Kilimani, or a certain block of flats in Kileleshwa.
Yeah.
There was actually another governor.
There's a connection.
A whole block of flats in Kileleshwa. So this, throw everything out there.
Put it out there.
Put it out there. But also there's a case of how counties are trying to defeat the cause of justice. The number of arson attacks, or let's not call them arson, the number of accidental fires that erupt in various county offices. And the connection between that and EACC sending a letter. EACC sends a letter today. Next week, accidentally, there's an electric fault.
Accidentally.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with,
where this information is hidden. Where this information is kept and stored. Okay? Suddenly, there's an electric fault, blaze, boom, gone.
Gone.
Don't even have the forensics.
And we didn't even have time, to salvage anything. Unfortunately. There was a problem with our fire trucks and the water, and everything came so late. And the only thing that we were able to salvage was the seal.
And so without evidence, we have no case.
Nothing happens. Let's speak to a lawyer out of this commercial break, short break, taking a look at traffic. We'll be speaking to lawyer Wilson Kamande and seek to get some insights onto what EACC is up to and his view on the fight against corruption in the country. Good morning. It's 7:30.
All right, nothing. It seems that everybody is indoors today. Unfortunately, we did have that one accident on the Eastern Bypass this morning, and from all reports, we're waiting for emergency services to arrive there, and hopefully that the casualties hopefully it will not be too serious injuries, but it doesn't look like a fatal accident from what we've seen so far. All right, anything that we should know about, let us know. I got to remind you of a couple of things though. The roads are slippery because it's raining in certain parts of Nairobi. It's raining in certain parts of Western Kenya. So in Kisumu, it's slightly wet. So if you're out on the streets, please be very careful because you don't want to go as fast as you ordinarily would. And I'm asking you to be very careful because less people on the roads, you're tempted to move a lot faster, and we've had too many accidents. Mombasa Road looking like it's going to come up for conversation very soon in terms of what's happening on the roads and, past curfew hours as it would be. So please be careful. I'm going to ask you that again. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see. But for now, it looks like we're going to have a quiet morning as far as traffic is concerned.
It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, Eldoret, 96.7,
Spice up
Nyeri,
your life.
90.9, Malindi, 97.7, and live streaming on
Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
You can also catch our live stream on Spice FM KE Facebook. We are also on YouTube. Spice FM KE is our channel, and our Twitter handle, Spice FM KE. Call us in 0719-012-600. We are discussing the fight against corruption. We have a renewed war. In fact, now this is not a fight. It's a renewed war against corruption. There's fresh vigor. We know the president went ahead and reconstituted some of those key organs.
Yep.
The EACC has a new boss. The DPP is a new boss. The DCI, a new boss. And they're all told work together. And even there's something called the multi-agency task force that works at looking at everything that they can do in the fight against corruption, that brings in officers from the Office of the Attorney General. However, corruption, especially in the counties, this is where everything is happening. So now we know it's in the papers today. EACC has written to the Kilifi County government asking, we'd like to understand this hospital that you're putting up. First of all, you're saying that phase 1 cost 400 million shillings.
Yes.
And then now you've advertised a tender for phase 2, and it's going to cost 385 million shillings. We'd like really to come in and see whether, everything that you have said, you've put on paper, everything that you're saying, the equipment that you've procured and kitted it with, really is value for money. And we were also talking just before we went to the break, how counties are just fighting fires by lighting fires. Example number one. In 2017, the first fire in Bungoma County after investigators from the EACC raided their offices and left with evidence that they sought in connection with allegations of a loss of 5 billion shillings through impropriety by senior county officials. In 2019, in Migori County, procurement officers were gutted, leaving the county without receipts for expenditures worth 1.56 billion shillings, according to the then Auditor General Edward Ouko. 2019, Kitui County Finance and Economic Planning offices raised in yet another mysterious fire. Back in 2018, the Auditor General had reported that Kitui County government had operated about 14 illegal bank accounts. In September 2019, fires gutted the Busia County finance offices, at a time when the EACC were investigating 2 corruption cases in Busia County. One of the county's water master plan, where 13 million shillings was paid to a contractor for work not done, and the second case involved 56 million shillings, which was paid through proxies to 3 companies allegedly owned by senior accountants between 2015 and 2019. The latest fire in Kisumu County, February 2020, at the finance offices, came soon after the EACC wrote to the Kisumu County Assembly, summoning 7 Kisumu County Assembly employees for questioning of alleged corruption, abuse of office, and falsification of academic certificates. You feel fire, you feel the heat, light a fire.
Light a fire, get rid of the heat
Get rid
once
of the
and
heat.
for all. All you'll find is smoking embers.
Nothing moves. Our friend Wilson Kamande is on the line. Good morning, Wilson.
Yeah, good morning.
How are
Good morning.
Fine, thank you.
you? Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much.
Wilson, this war against corruption. Now we are seeing what's happening, especially when we focus it on the counties, right?
Yes.
The sort of orders that were gotten by the EACC last week against Governor Okoth Obado and that building in Loresho. And then the kind of investigations that we see going around the country and what we are talking about, fighting fire with fire. Are we making progress?
Thank you very much for your question. If you look back, you will see that these instances of corruption that you're talking about are instances that started way back in 2013. You can link them all of them back to the first time when some of these people assumed office. And I would say this, for example, when you're talking about the Loresho House in connection to Migori County, you will see that these investigations can be linked to an initial story that was carried on about the 2.5 billion worth of tender that had been granted to Okoth Obado Bobby. I remember sometime around 2018, there was that story carried by one of the dailies. And if you follow it up, you will see that there is a link to how this money, the 2.5 billion, ended up, some of which ended up having being utilized towards the purchase of the Loresho House. So I would say this, that the war that you're seeing against corruption is not just a new war that has started. It's a continuation of what has been happening, and that tells you about the complexity with which dealing with the corruption, with which dealing with corruption is happening right now.
So it's a complex battle, this one.
It's a very complex battle, and I will give you an example using this case that you have right now.
Yeah.
Is that when you look at the transactions that are linked to the Loresho House, from the companies that were initially awarded the contract, how they were awarded these contracts, how the money moved to which account, and how they all ended up in one account that is held by Jared Kwaga, and now the same money was utilized towards the purchase of that property, and now later on they also claims by EACC that some of this money was even siphoned out to companies in Hong Kong, China, and Australia that were linked to. You see now, yeah. So that complexity now will give you the feel of why it's taking so long, and why now EACC has adopted the route of going for You go for the money, you go for the property. Before now, you can, so that you separate the criminal processes and the civil processes.
Okay, so is the resolve, Wilson, to go for both? To say that, all right, because of the fact that maybe a court process would take so long and we wouldn't be able to see maybe the fruits for a very long period of time, let's do what we can do now. Is that the resolve?
Yes. I think that is the resolve is to kill two birds with one stone. But with that one stone, what is happening is that it's very easy to follow the money. It's always said, if you want to know how that your deal is, you follow the money.
Yeah.
And by following the money, you realize that some of these contracts, for example, you had that there is this one person that is Jared Kwaga. He said to have incorporated together with his family members several companies that traded with Migori County.
Yep.
And through that, from the information from EACC, you find that some of these companies were awarded what we call the high value contract.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, the awards themselves were irregular. So if now you are, for example, to prosecute for the award of these irregular contracts, you will not get to the real persons who are behind those contracts. So you will the circumstances are such that the people who awarded those contracts, who are normally the tender committees and all that, are the ones that EACC would go for. And then you would also go to the companies that were awarded those contracts. So those are hot in the minds of many people. Here, they're the ones that we call the small fish.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, you will let the big players themselves off the hook. You see? Yeah. And therefore now you get two distinct that once you go for the assets, you will go to that is what has assisted EACC to even do the investigations to a point of believing that now the real beneficiary of this house is not Jared Kwega or even Evelyn Okod, but it is Obado himself. Yes, if you look at the chain of all these events.
But if we just look at what the orders that the EACC acquired, right? Which bars the three persons from selling, disposing of, wasting, or in any other way dealing with the property aforesaid for 6 months.
Yes.
What does it mean? Does it mean that now the tenant does not have to pay rent to any of these three individuals, or does it mean that in fact even the tenant ought to leave this premise?
Thank you very much. If you look at the application that was made by EACC, they were seeking to, I will say, two major prayers. And one of the prayers is that preservation order against disposing of, against selling it and wasting the property for a period of 6 months of completing investigations and commencing civil recovery proceedings. There is also another order that had been sought that was for purposes of preservation orders of the rent that is payable. Yes, so for the court, the EACC had prayed for the court to appoint a receiver manager for purposes of receiving rent. And now, yes, for purposes of receiving rent. However, that order, the court had difficulties granting that order because it did not have the persons to whom that the proposed receiver manager. Yeah. And so, in the words of Mombi Ngogi, they were encouraged to make an appropriate application for purposes of an appointment of a receiver manager. So therefore, it was upon EACC to suggest that the court do grant them prayers for purposes of ABC to be appointed as a receiver manager for purposes of collecting the rent. Because in the whole of these things is that the tenant is innocent. Yep. If they continue to pay for the purposes, if they have to continue living that premises, they'll have to pay for it. You cannot just kick them out. Yep. And then these investigations are still ongoing, and a determination has not been made on whether actually that those are proceeds of corruption. Yep. So I know EACC is working on that, and the application is being made for purposes of appointment of a specific company for purposes of collecting that rent and preserving it for the period in question.
If we look at the length of time that it takes, for some of these criminal, I'm just looking at the criminal proceedings of all of this. I mean, we're looking at court cases that could take upwards of 10 years. And we've seen this. I mean, some cases having still been in court even till now. Would it make sense? Because if we can't get convictions because of, number one, the judicial process, the legal process, the back and forth, which has clearly been a symptom of this process, would it be okay? And I'm just saying at this point, is asset recovery then a resolution that can be seen as workable, as opposed to trying to get these folks behind bars? Because it seems that it will take forever to get some of these things done. So is taking the asset away punishment enough, first? Secondly, does it serve as an able deterrent to anybody else then who would try to take away public funds?
Thank you. I would answer it this way. That one of them is that asset recovery is a good means, as a deterrent means, because ultimately what people want to do is to unjustly enrich themselves. So the moment you take out that benefit from the equation, then there would be no motivation for them to do the corrupt deal. But however, and what we look at it is that up and above the assets, that people need to be taught a lesson. People need to learn, and for purposes of this, is that's the reason why you have fines, because people will just steal. They go and invest the money, then you follow whatever that they have, only to realize that from the same, it's a seed. Let's say for them it's a seed capital that they will have increased themselves through other means. But for purposes of that, what we look at when you look at the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, there is what we call the mandatory fine. The mandatory fine, if, for example, there is a personal gain from a corrupt deal or from an abuse of office, or there is a loss of public funds, there is a mandatory fine of 3 times of the money that was lost or the benefit that was gained. You see, now that is a punishment. And then at the same time, if it is such a great deal, then you find even some people end up in prison. We have an example of a former county, I would say a former city county chief who died in prison because of allegations of corruption. So I would say it's you would approach it that way. You recover the assets, because you see these are 2 distinct processes. They can go together at the same time. At the same time, yes. And now the advantage you have is that initially people thought that the only time you would lose property is once you are convicted. But we have seen in the recent past that you go for the assets, you recover the assets. At the same time, people are still being prosecuted in court. So I think it's a 2-pronged approach. It's a very effective approach. You go for the person and you go for the money. So whichever you get at first, it is good for the public.
But it also makes these corrupt people are going to be smart as well. Because if you're never going to find any property in my name, like look at this, for example, this particular case in Loresho, you will not be able to come and ask me to justify my wealth, because I'll still be the same person, but my daughter, my son, my cousin, everybody else is rich. So they may find ways of beating this same system that has come to the rescue of EACC.
and I will take you back to the example of Migori County. You think there is an intricate web of companies, for example. And for Jared, I'll give you a very good example. Is that Jared, those companies, of all the companies that were visited with Jared, you had one that he had 2 brothers in the mix. Who one owns 2 companies, the other one had 1 company. His wife also was one of the beneficiaries of that. He also had a sister-in-law in the process, and also his mother. You see, now that becomes, and the nature of people are not so trusting. So what we will do is that we will always go for their close associates.
We'll keep it close to the family. Close in the family.
Yes, we will always keep it close to the family. And so they will always also be in communication. So therefore it becomes, however intricate that web is, there is always a way you can always connect the dots at some point. Even if you do not have a
Go ahead.
even if you do not have a direct link. to the person at the top. There will always be that. There will always be that. How I don't. There's always be a link, an indirect link that you cannot connect it directly, but you know exactly that it exists, and that's the reason why the moment this property goes, that you will always find a close associate or a family member of those politicians is hanging around and is a beneficiary of that property.
Wilson, I wanted to take a short break at 11 minutes to 8 o'clock. Take a short break, and then this conversation continues. 0719-012-600. If you've got any comment or question that you'd like to ask our lawyer, Wilson Kamande. He is a lawyer practicing in Nairobi. We're discussing corruption, the fight against corruption, the best way to win this war. Good morning. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. You know, it's interesting when you hear these kind of cases and how the EFCC is really trying to come up with smart than this is exactly what you're doing. You'll have to be one step ahead.
Spice up your life.
Ahead. And either the EFCC is catching up.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Got the tender, they supplied, got paid. After they got paid, the audit happens, and the Auditor General raises some flags, and now those flags are what is picked up by the EFCC. And by that time the EFCC is trying to catch up with you, you are already like 6 months ahead of them. It's you know, it's interesting that this is the nature of the game, and you cannot be you can't do it any other way. There's also, of course, the issue of deterrent, and deterrent comes by using, like what Wilson is telling us, setting examples with somebody, taking somebody and taking them hard on, so that this itakuwa funzo kwa wako na wenzako kama wewe. Is that so, Wilson?
Yes, it is.
But so we're looking at now the two distinct ways. One is, let's take somebody to court, criminal or civil proceedings, and then the other one is go for assets and ensure that you first of all withhold those assets so that this person is not enjoying the fruits of their ill-gotten wealth. Hello, Wilson.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yep. So in this particular case, when we're using this two-pronged approach, which one should EFCC be using, for example, to show to the public that we are working? Because the first one of going to court, really, and it taking forever, is where we start saying, you guys, you go to court and this...
Even more in a civil proceeding, for example.
Yeah.
Civil court, I mean, if we want to look at it, from what we've seen, Wilson, civil court could take yonks, and an individual could, whatever kind of defense they put in, it could go on taking forever, and then individual could say, okay, well, all right, well, maybe things have changed, I'm remorseful, I could pay a certain amount per month kind of thing. Is that the kind of agreement that we would see taking place in court proceedings? It seems like asset recovery is the easier way to go about it.
Yes, you look at people, but that's what that is actually, yes, the High Court. So essentially what...
Wilson, I think you moved when we went into a break. So,
I've moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't hear you very well.
Now the call is breaking.
Yes, give me 2 minutes.
Okay.
But,
So could you start that again?
sorry, I'm saying it. Okay, now you can hear me.
That's better.
Okay. Now what I was saying is that when you come to these asset recovery proceedings, they are handled by High Court and Corruption Division. For example, the order that was granted the other day on the 6th of May, it's a piece of order was granted by Justice Mungu Ngogi of the High Court.
Yeah.
And then the advantage you have is that even if you come them a civil proceeding, they are quasi, I will say they are quasi criminal in nature. And therefore, the burden with which you approach them is much lower than in the criminal proceeding. The burden actually shifts on the person who is believed to be holding the illicit wealth to prove that they acquired that property legally. And therefore, the moment you cannot explain, one, how you acquired that property, or two, that you acquired that property legally, then there is a presumption that the same property was acquired through corrupt means, and therefore you are going to forfeit that property. You see, now the burden in this case is now from the EACC or from the prosecution, and shifts now to the person who is believed to be in possession of that illegal property, illegally acquired property.
Yes.
Yes. Now, if you compare with what happened in criminal cases, is that the burden lies throughout in the criminal proceedings on the prosecution to prove that the accused is guilty beyond reasonable doubt. Normally, what you have is a higher burden than the one that now is posed in the asset recovery. Yes. So that is the reason why it's easier to go the asset recovery way, and then at the same time proceed with the criminal. Yes, because with the criminal proceedings, because once there is a finding by the court that indeed that what you have property was illegally acquired, then it is possible that the same finding of the court can be used against you in the criminal proceeding to show that indeed you are guilty. Yes.
Okay. The war against corruption seems to, it's one where we need also to look back at our own wiring as a people.
Yes.
Because clearly, you will find today very many people who will be saying, no, this person is just being attacked, yet they've done so much. If you look at how devolution has worked in the country, before this, we didn't have these kind of facilities that had been put up, infrastructure facilities that had been put up, and yet this is working. And somebody somewhere is using a political scheme to discredit our leader. How do we convert ourselves as a people to actually look at things and doing things the right way? Just when you're given a job, just do your job to the best of your ability without trying to be clever.
I think there needs to be a shift in the mindset of how people operate. You have to admit that the moment we had devolution, there is one thing that also devolved. We devolved corruption.
Yep.
And by devolving corruption, you now created another layer of 47 conduits for corruption.
Yes.
Yeah, and therefore that is the reason why in every administration and since 2013 you will hear the last time you had over 40 files that had been forwarded to the DPP for purposes of approving prosecution against county officials.
Yeah.
And if you look at these deals, they are deals that are run in terms of hundreds of millions. For example, if you have one county like Migori, where just a few people all linked to the governor are awarded contracts worth 2.5 billion.
Yeah.
Even if they are awarded, if there's some work that is being done in the ground, and what you have is that there are kickbacks that are being given, that the work is restricted to a few family members. You can guarantee that the public is having value for money. People might see, for aesthetic value. You will see that they have done some work, but if you follow how that work was awarded and how it has been done, it showed work that was done for purposes of putting up a show and for the people to get the money. The end result is that there are few people who get rich at the expense of the public.
Yeah.
And therefore, we need to have a change of mindset, and people need to appreciate that the moment you have our investigative agencies raise a red flag that there is a problem with certain counties. For example, there are certain procurements that have issues. People need to support them, not just come up complaining and saying that the government is playing politics and all that. Because what you have nowadays is that moment these politicians are caught with their hands in the cookie jar, the first thing they do is to wave the political card.
Yes,
absolutely.
I'm being fought because I'm in this wing. I'm being fought because I belong to this tribe.
Yes, and the first people now to come to their rescue are their politicians from their communities.
True.
Or supporters. Supporters calling press conferences, issuing press conferences, that our man is under siege because of the position that they've taken politically. But I think people need to come out and up. Yes, that if you have been linked to any corruption deal, you carry your own course. When you come to the ballot, we'll decide whether we support you or not. And therefore, call for people, especially those ones who are on the ground, to ensure if a deal stinks and you still honestly believe there's a corruption that is involved, always be a whistleblower. It is done incognito. I don't know which you can say. The term that that you can just make a complaint to the EACC. They will take up. They will investigate. They normally do that. There is no way your name will ever come up. You do not want to be known to have the one to be the whistleblower. But at the end of the day, is that this not a fight just by EACC or the DPP or the DCI or the discovery agency.
It's a fight by the country. It's the people of Kenya who are fighting corruption.
Yes, because
indeed,
essentially it's us who are losing.
It's true. Wilson Kamande, Nairobi lawyer, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.
Yes.
And we wish you all the best. Eid Mubarak. I know maybe you're not Muslim, I don't know, but I know you'd be enjoying the public holiday anyway.
Yeah, definitely. This corona, but
right.
Have a good one.
Wilson, thank you so much.
Have a good day.
It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning. 2 minutes after 8.
102.5 Spice FM.
All right, the roads are looking really good this morning. We don't see much of an issue. Everybody seems to be staying home except for the one hot spot that we saw on the Eastern Bypass. Apart from that, people are then complaining now. You notice the potholes in certain parts of the city. Thika Road, there's a problem there. There's another one right along Kangundo Road, hoping that gets sorted out. In a bit, we're going to be looking around the country at, the major highways and maybe bridges that would have been washed away by the rain. We're asking you to be very careful today, though, as you go along. The traffic is not so much. That means you're tempted to go faster. I don't know how many times I need to say this, but we need to say it a lot more. We will say it so that you guys are kept safe. Don't forget to use your masks in public, and don't forget that you need to go slower. I'll say it again. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see, but it's touted to be quite a quiet morning because it's a holiday. We'll know what it looks like in a short bit.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain
today's
times.
proverb is from Nigeria.
Oko,
Igbo people.
Nigerian.
Igbo. Huh?
Igbo.
Igbo. The G is silent.
Yeah, kind of.
The Igbo
But
people.
it's there somewhere.
Igbo. If one does not chew water, he does not know that water has bones. If one does not chew water, he does not know that water has bones.
True.
It's true.
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about this water that we are chewing. COVID-19. We are fighting COVID-19 left, right, and center. And then we've been talking about, people not collaborating with the government left, right, and center. From the very beginning, go home and isolate yourself and quarantine yourself. Karibu sana Kenya, karibu nyumbani, at JKIA. Fill out this Ebola form. Go home and quarantine yourself. Didn't happen.
Nope. It's not going to happen.
Go to quarantine facilities. The government comes and tells us that these people in quarantine have just been mingling and having parties and not following our instructions. So let's say, just for purposes of this argument, that didn't happen. Stay home. Stop going to bars. We are seeing MCAs eating avocados and in Nyeri and no drinks. Seeing videos emerging elsewhere from Nakuru. MCAs sitting. We are seeing MPs being arrested in Roy, hosting parties. We are seeing people being picked up from their homes. Why? Because, they had a wedding, they had a birthday for their child, and they had invited.
Had to have it.
It was not neighbors, it was just family that came.
Still.
Yep. We are hearing stories of people who have been taken to hospital, prominent personalities lying in hospital because they hosted a group of 18 for prayer meeting. Now, there's a new one. Rashid Aman, the CAS for Health, yesterday said, you know what? Now we also have another issue. So people come and we are doing testing. We're coming to the neighborhoods and we're saying we're conducting testing in Itsli, in Old Town, in Kawangware, and elsewhere. People come and what's the procedure? You line up, you give your details, and then you go and your samples are taken, and then you'll get the results later. What is happening is that people are giving the wrong details at this point of registration.
So that
What's your name?
They don't find you.
Yeah. Your name is Ozioko Bunduondo. You call yourself Grace Akinyi.
Because,
Just.
I mean.
Grace Akinyi, your telephone number 0701 022 022. All right? And you go.
You call me, that's your problem.
Now, the guys are trying to call you to tell you, boss, madam.
We need you to quarantine.
Madam, your results have come and you're positive and we need you to isolate. Or, madam, tell us who you've come into contact with. People are going missing. Why are people doing this?
Why is this the case? Why don't people want to be found if in case you then are positive with COVID-19? And then why don't people want to give information of those who they may have come in contact with over the last 14 days, as it were? What is the reason why people are not interested in this bargaining?
Because you don't trust this government. You tell them where you are, my friend. You test positive. You plus your household plus your cat and dog and chicken.
Vamua.
All of them going into isolation. And then the next day, you're watching TV and the CS is there saying, for example, there was a family
of Grace
Akinyi. And we found out and we discovered that Grace had gone to the market, had gone to this, had gone to the... You are announced on public television, national TV. Would you want to expose yourself to all that?
Nobody wants to be exposed. That's the thing. Because unfortunately, along with COVID has come stigmatization. You, first of all, leave alone the fact that you're positive, all right? That one is not even the main issue. Now, couple that with all the different things that you did. How dare you go to the market? How dare you fraternize with people? How dare you go to church and this function or the other? How dare you have a prayer meeting? So you can imagine you should have known better. These are the things you did. So there's a scarlet letter on your chest now. Wherever you go, we are branding you as that individual who, can you imagine? She was positive.
This is that
she was
reckless,
doing
irresponsible
those things, and she was positive, infecting other people, taking the disease home. Can you imagine? This is the problem, because with COVID has come stigmatization. And unfortunately, look, it's not a happy place to be in when you're stigmatized. You're socially ostracized from people instantly. Whether it's not physical, but in the minds of people, they see you a certain way, and so they've branded you a certain type of individual. And that's what happens with this. With the COVID has come stigmatization. So people see that, and then the person who is at the helm of the ministry that is leading this fight in this country is already telling you that, my friend. Even other people who are watching don't want to be branded that.
There's a family in Kibera that went for a funeral. Imagine they got to Siaya, and instead of just going for the business of funeral and coming back home, they decided to mingle. And now they could have spread this thing. Well, that's the truth.
They did spread it.
The truth is, if indeed they went and they did not just observe all those measures, go funeral, get back to Nairobi, if they started going to mingle with visiting so-and-so neighbor, wajua tumekuja kuzika nani. Oh, yeah. If you do that, it's the truth. However, there's a message that you're also sending when you announce that in public. But I think the bigger issue here is the trust between the citizenry and their government. This is an issue that is completely disconnected. You said this from the very beginning when the issue started rising on why are people not obeying the orders? Why can we not behave like Germans? Why can't we behave like the Chinese? When the Chinese told people stay indoors, well, there's the issue of the Chinese government telling you to stay indoors. But also the measures that you can see the Chinese government taking.
Yeah.
They're not just telling you stay indoors, they have a plan.
By the time they open their mouths and say stay indoors, there's certain things they're already put in place.
There's exactly a complete plan.
You need shopping, we'll bring it to you.
We'll bring it to you. Or we'll have a clear way in which you shall go shopping. You guys live in this neighborhood, this is where you're going to shop. You'll find all your provisions ready. If you need, those that need government assistance, we are offering government assistance. If you travel and you want to be sure that when you're out there, you're a bit safe, yes, because your phone is showing you that you are green and everybody else who's outside there, their phone is green. So the likelihood that any of these people has COVID-19 walking around is low, has been reduced. The government has done all this in the background. Come to Isli, stay for 14 days, don't get out of Isli. What has happened in Isli in those 14 days?
Riots,
do we know?
We don't even know.
Do we know where the testing is happening? Do we know how many people have been tested? Do we know whether they're coming to test me or not? Do we know? So what are we supposed to do in those 14 days in the meantime? What should be happening? The rest of the people who used to trade with Isli and don't live in Isli, have not been able to access Isli, they're waiting to be told, now you can go back to Isli because this is where you go to pick your wares. Now, if government has not done all those things, and you're telling the people of Isli, in fact, the other conversation that people are having is, let's wait and see. You've said Isli is a hotspot for this COVID-19. So let's wait. In those 14 days, how many cases are going to come out of Isli?
Out of Isli.
How many? Every new day that you're announcing these cases, how many of them are actually in Isli? If you're seeing low numbers coming out of Isli, then you start planting those doubts in people's minds.
Putting the doubts in the heads of people that perhaps this lockdown, as it happened, then was not necessary in Isli. And unfortunately, is that not what we are seeing now? That even after the lockdown in Isli, we started to see then a jump up of cases in Kibera, and then we started to see other places as well. I mean, so then people start to ask you, then what was the rationale? And it is unfortunate, but it is true that people then will begin to say, these people didn't even know what they were talking about in the first place. So the same government who wants to tell you that they were going to put a lockdown in a certain area, as justifiable as it was at that point, took 2-3 days for it all to unravel then at the feet of those who were locked down in that area. Because then they'll say, oh, okay, you didn't know what you're talking about. So even this thing that you're telling us to sit at home and not come out at work, you also don't know what you're talking about. So guess what? That's very nice, but I'm going to be out. I'm going to be out doing what I need to do because I need to survive one way or another. And I think that's the pushback that is coming out, and it's coming out loud and clear. And that is what has gotten to the highest echelons of government, whereas we had until the point where we had the president coming out and saying, well, you know what? This thing, we can't do it. It's the pushback, and you hear it, and that's the truth. Because you give people the thought, or you put it you plant a seed of doubt in the minds of people. And you know what? The seed of doubt was not planted with COVID. The seed of doubt has germinated. It has grown into a giant oak in the minds of Kenyans.
The government announced that we have a case of COVID in the country.
That's when a lockdown should have happened.
And also, did you see the kind of reaction that we got from the public?
People said it was a lie.
People said
it was a manufactured case, and World Bank money came the next day or the day before or in close proximity to the announcement of that case. Can you think about it? Can you imagine how bad have things gotten that the people of a nation, in the midst of a worldwide, okay, at that point it was not a pandemic yet, but still, in the middle of when this thing was bringing turmoil to the globe, one case is found in Kenya, and what is the initial reaction? This one is manufactured.
Lies.
It's a lie. It was manufactured, and so that they can get money. We were just talking about there's no blood in the country, and that was the one that had taken the country by storm.
Yeah.
And then money could come in for COVID. That's the reason why. Isn't it really sad that that is what the people have reduced a government of the day to? That you could manufacture a story so that you could get funding. It's ridiculous. And in this case, it wasn't true. There actually was COVID in the country.
There
right?
was COVID, yes.
But in the minds of people, this is a story. It doesn't make sense.
And this is not just,
it's not even mistrust, it's distrust.
Complete distrust. And it's around the country. The first person that we heard, that elderly mama from somewhere in Ukambani was saying, Hakuna corona. These people wanted money. They got money. Just leave us. Let us do our thing.
How
all right?
many more people have
You
that?
guys have gotten your billions from World Bank. Sawa. Eat it. Leave us alone. Let us live our life. The other woman from the coast, from Mombasa, was saying, when I hear that thing is near here, come and tell me those issues. Right now,
I have other things.
do I look like I'm dirty? I'm clean. I'm hygienic. Okay? So stop bothering me about, stay at home, do this and the other. People already were feeling, I don't trust this government. Compare the same to what we are being told, or what happened in Rwanda. When people are told, stay at home, stay at home. We even spoke to some Kenyans who live and work in Rwanda. And we asked them, how did the people take these orders immediately? And people are like, here when the government tells you to do something, you basically just do it. When the government tells you, we need you to stay at home, you're going to support those that are vulnerable. The government already knows those that are vulnerable.
But
and everybody knows, the government knows those who are vulnerable, those who will require immediate assistance. So those ones will be sorted. The rest of us, let's stay at home. They rolled out something as simple as, you want to come out, just go, dial whatever number, USSD
We'll
code,
tell you when you can.
and you get permission to come out. And the permission is basically to restrict the number of people who are outside at the same time. And people trusted their government. People trust their government in Tanzania. We were told by a reporter in Tanzania.
Interestingly enough, yes.
When people are told there is corona, just observe the measures. The number of people who are piling up into buses reduced. Now buses are only carrying seating capacity. People are now going to shops. You find hand washing places. How many places today would you go and find the sanitizers and hand washing, especially in public transport?
It has dwindled.
Zero.
That's for sure. But the thing, as you're talking about Rwanda and talking about what they did and say that people trusted their government, it is because they have had a habit of practicing trustworthiness. There are things that they have been doing in the past that people will say, okay, I can resonate with this. So it makes sense. Whether it comes from public administration, whether it comes from infrastructure development, whether it comes from education, whatever the case may be, they have shown you that they know what they're doing and that they're committed to making sure that the country is a well-oiled machine and it's running smoothly. So guess what? It's very easy then for you to come in the future and ask them as the people to do something else, and they will listen to you because you don't have a deficit of trust.
Yep.
You've already built it, so you're already working your way up. And so by the time you're asking people to do something that could essentially, let's be honest, could harm them. You're asking them to stay at home where they shouldn't. It could harm them. They trust you that even in something that is not beneficial to them, they're willing to say it's all right. Because of how we've seen you operate in the past, this one that you're bringing to us today, we listen to you.
We listen. It's okay.
Come on.
People in the UK, when they were told the government is going to support you if you've lost your job, just apply. People applied.
They did.
Right? More than double what had been budgeted for applied. But everybody who applied has gotten some support. In this country, we are reading in the news that 100,000 people are getting 2,000 shillings in 2 weeks.
Meanwhile, there's a kitty of 3.7 billion.
Yes, we've heard that because the government has, for the last X number of years, has been supporting the elderly and the critically disabled, the government has increased by another 10 billion to support these people during this time. They are supposed to receive 8,000 shillings at a go. We are seeing in the news that there are some people who are receiving that 8,000 shillings who do not qualify for this program because it was already manipulated for a long time. There's an issue of, do you really believe that the government can sort you out? Do you believe that the government can sort out your needs? We are at a point where Kenyans, it appears, Kenyans don't believe that. When we spoke to the Kenya's ambassador to China, Sarah Serem, and we asked her, what is it that you'd tell Kenyans from the experience that what you've seen, how you've seen China dealing with COVID-19? What did you tell Kenyans to do? What did she say? Kenyans, please, stop arguing so much. Just follow what the government is telling you.
How? Which government is the question? It's laughable and it's painful that it is.
It is true. The thing is, we need to listen to what the government is telling us, but also the government needs to understand, why are people not listening to what we are telling them? Why are people not listening?
It should have been a reflection point.
Yeah.
Because I believe, we've had several occasions whereby we've had C.S. Matiang'i, we've had C.S. Mutahi Kagwe, we've had the president himself ask this question, whether it be in a moment of sober reflection, but at the point whereby they're asking the country the question, we are at pains to understand why Kenyans are not doing what we've asked them to do. To me, it's as clear as the sun is up in the daytime. If you need to figure that one out, then it needs sober reflection on part of the government. It is as clear as the day is bright. They don't trust you.
It's an issue of trust.
Yes, it is.
Let's open up the phone line, 0719-012-600. Why are Kenyans not listening to their government? Why are Kenyans not heeding government instructions, directives, advisories? You're told the rain is going to come. Please move to lower ground. Please, there's a high likelihood of you getting affected by floods, by landslides. People are not moving. Matiang'i is saying now we're going to force people to move. We're going to move them by force. Why are people not following government instructions?
People move? Why wouldn't people move?
20 minutes after 8. Let's take a look at weather. Phone lines are open. 0719-012-600. Call us in. Good morning.
Showers in some parts already, likely to be a wet afternoon with highs of 25 and lows of 14. We'll take a look then into Nyeri, where light rain showers will be the order of the day right now. At 16 degrees, we'll see highs of 24 and lows of 14. Partly cloudy conditions through the rest of the afternoon. In Nakuru, it's partly cloudy at 16 degrees, highs of 25 and lows of 13. Eldoret sees us as partly cloudy at 13 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 12. Taking a look then into Kisumu, where we are at 19 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 18. Taking a look into Mombasa, where it's partly cloudy at 26 degrees. At 28 degrees will be the high and lows of 24 with showers in the afternoon. Malindi this morning is partly cloudy at 27 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 25 with showers in the afternoon. We'll take a look then into Kampala, where it's mostly sunny at 21 degrees. It'll change though later on, highs of 26 and lows of 18 with showers later on. Take a look then into Dar es Salaam, where it's mostly sunny this morning at 26 degrees. At 29 the high and lows of 23, chances of showers pretty high for the afternoon. In Johannesburg, it's clear skies with few clouds, mostly sunny conditions though, highs of 18 and lows of 6, currently standing at 12 degrees. And finally, for now, we'll take a peek into Lagos, where light thunderstorms and rain will be the order of the day for the next 5 days, it seems. But for today, we'll see highs of 31 and lows of 24, with quite heavy rains throughout the afternoon into the evening.
So why are Kenyans such vichwa ngumu? They don't want to listen to their government. Every time the government tells you, wash your hands, you're like, why? I'm going to wash my face. In fact, even Mutahi Kagwe was saying, it's like cutting your nose to spite your face. Basically, what exactly are you doing? Yegon.
Yes, good morning Eric and Duoko.
Good morning, Yegon. How are you, Leo?
Niko salama sana. You know Kenyans, Kenyans don't trust some fictions. They want facts. That is why when you tell them floods are coming, and they will tell you, let us wait for the floods, then we will go.
We will believe when we see them.
Yes, we will believe when we see that. That is the same thing with the COVID-19. They have not witnessed deaths in their villages, in their neighbors. That is when they will know now this is a serious disease.
That's what it's going to take.
That is how it will take. That because if you see the history of HIV and AIDS, people could not believe until the time when they saw people being buried with polythenes.
Yes.
They cannot touch. That is when now they say, now this is a disease.
It's real.
But for now, until the government waajilie waseme toa curfew watoe disease ifike mashinani, that is when Kenyans will wake up.
So why is it, Yegon, that now Kenyans do not believe in this, what you're calling fiction? What makes it fiction?
Because the government have been lying to them ever since. Shida ni serikali. When the government doesn't deliver a real promise, everything they say is fake. They don't deliver. It will take ages.
Yeah.
That's why Kenyans have developed an immunity that their government is lying to them. When COVID was announced, you could see no reaction that, wamesikia pesa.
Yeah.
Now they need money. So they know their government well, that the government doesn't care about them. The government is about himself.
It's about themselves.
Themselves.
Thank you, Yegon. Have a good day. You're still in Wajir?
I'm still in Wajir.
Have a good day there, sir. Anthony in Kisumu, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Anthony.
I think the government is taking Kenyans for a ride. Most Kenyans have the notion that we cannot trust 100% what the government tells us. And it boils down to our political system. Everything in those political manifestos that we were given, none, if ever, is ever implemented. So right now, if it comes from maybe Bishop or Lesser Pete, we might take it to 60% truth. If it comes from Matiang'i, we can say it's just another political gaffer.
It's one of those things that they say.
Yes, and then mostly, the political system in Kenya is the one that believes that when the electorates are vulnerable, we have to look at you. And it plays politics in Kenya. If Raila says something, it's because he's made the people, for example, to be depending on him. Now, the handout thing is not sustainable in the long run. And I think last time when I contributed, I said we should now be planning on post-COVID. I saw the president launch the economic recovery something.
Stimulus program.
And I'm told it has to still go to parliament because I think there's appropriation of how the government spends has to be appropriated by the parliament. Now he's given us all those alternatives, 10,000 teachers. Were teachers affected by COVID? Do we need 10 billion to recruit new teachers after COVID? We needed it before, not after COVID. So it's not
there you go.
Yeah, we need teachers. We have shortage of teachers. We don't need teachers.
It's not this is not a post-COVID recovery thing. Yes.
No, not at all. Somebody was saying the Polytechnic, the Mombasa University, where Joho launched that COVID center. Will it remain a facility after that?
No.
Where will we take those beds? And because General doesn't have that capacity. Or are we going to distribute them? Or take them back like Isiolo, they took them back to private hospitals? So those are the things that makes us Kenyans a bit skeptic of what the government tells us. Of course, with the economic hard times, I have to pay rent, I have to pay utilities, I have to pay my bills.
Makes it worse.
If I'm told to stay at home and watch binge on whatever, I cannot stay home, and I have the bills. I cannot stay home. A friend of mine asked Matiang'i and Magoa, kindly tell us, do we eat the second term school fee? Or do we
waiting to know.
Yes. Anthony, thank you very much. Let me pick this one. Let me take this one now. Victor in Nakuru. Good morning, Victor.
Good morning.
Good morning, Victor.
Morning.
Yes.
Good morning to you.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Why are Kenyans such vichwangumu?
Not with Sankumo, as you say, Eric, but these are things have been growing since ever. In fact, if these things foreign things could have come in the era of that, let me say that, to some extent, you could have believed what the government is saying. But this government we have right now, I think you can follow what they have been telling us since they were in power. I mean, since they joined power, up to now.
Yeah.
I think you can't really believe them. They have promised us so many things. We have, I don't know, many stadia which have to be built. We had laptops to be brought, and all those things they told us. So now they tell us, of course, Corona is there. In fact, what telephone Kenyans, by the way, Corona is there, it's there. But let Kenyans don't want to believe that. I mean, because they have been telling us, in fact, Kenyans mostly read what they have said more than what they have said. And hello.
Yes, Victor.
Yes, but I think my government should have people up their first, and they should bring the trust, the Indian trust back to them. Otherwise, if they continue the same way, I think we will never trust them. Even me, I don't even trust them.
You don't trust them at all?
I don't trust the government at all.
Thank you, Victor. Have a good day, Nakuru.
Thanks, Victor.
The issue is about trust. It's about trust. And I think that the same way from the way Yegon started by saying, fiction. We don't trust. You hear things from the government. How many people trust that the government is actually going to spend 53.7 billion shillings that will have a direct impact on the people post-COVID? Because this is the economic stimulus program post-COVID,
right,
to address the COVID issue. How much are we talking about? You're talking about 5 billion shillings to hire local labor for rehabilitation of access roads and footbridges. Is this going to happen next week, next month, next year, June, July? When is it going to happen?
The fact that you don't know is
Are you going to feel the impact of 5 billion shillings that people have actually been hired, have been paid, and they're getting money? And that is happening. And you're already seeing the roads that have been dilapidated by the current floods and rains have swiftly been sorted out. Talked about the other day when there was an issue in Japan. A road was swept away within hours.
Done. By the time people woke up in the morning, you wouldn't have known that the road had disappeared the night before.
Pick one bridge in this country, one bridge that has been swept away by floods. Okay? There's 5 billion shillings that is going to hire local labor for rehabilitation of access roads and footbridges. Pick one bridge.
I even have one now. You even ask me now.
Now, let's see how long that bridge is going to take before it's rehabilitated.
No, they told us it was going to take 3 days, and we're talking about the Maimahiu Narok, the bridge on that road. They told us it was going to take 3 days.
That's a big one.
2 weeks ago.
Talk about a small one that requires local labor.
Oh, just a small bridge.
Yeah, just
don't like that one.
What? That's a big one. That's a big bridge. Let's talk about a small bridge that just requires local labor, that you're saying local contractor hired, you're going to repair this bridge.
Let's
and
even
you're going
talk
to work
about
with the supervision of the local county engineers.
Mwiki Road in Kasarani.
Oh, that one.
Let's just talk about Mwiki Kasarani.
Are you sure?
Just 2 months ago, there was uproar. There was somebody killed. Local MP said she didn't know what was going on. There was money promised. There were promises that were made. There was a decision to fix the road till today, as we are speaking now. It's just because COVID came and people are not really using the road. But nothing was done. Promises. And so I'm going to go with Yegon on this one. Fiction. Things that you say you're going to do, you don't do. And then you want people to come and operate in reality. It can't happen.
You know what? Move because you're going to build a road.
It can't happen.
Oh, move because floods are coming.
That's the...
When the floods come, I'll move.
If you like, throw money at the problem. Throw talk.
Yeah. We spoke to people in Budalangi. Who were saying the same thing. We move from here, right? The government will never support us to come back.
And this is our home.
Yeah, and this is our home. I'm not moving. Let me die. If I die, I die. Right. 27 minutes to 9 o'clock. Let's take a look at traffic.
Has it really changed? Not really. We don't have much of an issue on the roads today. People are complaining that the few police that are on the road are actually demanding an administration fee. And that's what I'm going to call it this morning because I'm feeling very nice. Demanding an administration fee to actually move around. And that's an issue today. Apparently, because the question is why on the roads, it's the holiday, this kind of thing. So not much traffic, but there will be some traffic in your minds depending on the roads in which you are on today. And also, please, guys, just wear your masks because this is the thing. At the end of the day, even if, regardless, COVID is still there. You want to protect yourself, and you also want to protect others. Wear your masks if you're out in public. Sawa sawa. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see in case anything pops up. Keep it moving this morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, having and looking at what is going on in the world. Just last week, we saw that probably one of the world's most famous fugitives was captured in a Paris apartment in the name of Felician Kabuga. And he was, the charge against him, or the allegations against him, are that he did fund and fuel major parts of the Rwandan genocide. And after having been on the run for 26 years, was finally captured. The questions abound, though, in terms of what is going to happen. Many countries have been accused of harboring him, keeping him safe, whereby he should have faced the long arm of the law, but that did not happen. Kenya, one of those countries. DR Congo, one of those countries, Switzerland, Germany, and France, where he was finally captured. And so the question is, what happens with all the vagaries that surround the ICTR in Arusha? And that's the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, which was then closed and is now an information center, then now feeds the court, as it were, at The Hague. So the questions now are, will he be tried in The Hague? Will he then be brought to Arusha and then information, gotten from him? Will then there be options for him to be tried in Rwanda? Will he be tried at The Hague in the Netherlands? What exactly is going to happen now? Because, it's been a long-running case. Hundreds of thousands of people died by his word and by his hand. What then happens? And even by his pocket. So then what happens after that? Many people have written many things over the last 26 years as regards what would be the case in terms of this terrible, terrible genocide that happened in Rwanda. And then, of course, in terms of who would try whom when individuals were arrested. And now we have one of the most famous individuals around this, and famous not necessarily being a good thing. So then the questions abound, what really would happen? And would it have merit for him to be tried as an African on an African court? What happens next?
Because now the ICTR is no longer in operation as a court. It is not. Right? Now, the basic route, even looking at the one for Yugoslavia, basic route is to go to the ICC.
Yes.
Now, we are talking about the same Africa that was raising all manner of hue and cry against the ICC, expecting to get justice at the ICC.
This is the thing now, because a lot of countries, just from what we've seen in terms of commentary after the capture of Felician Kabuga, is that, he must now face justice, and the wheels of justice must grind in the favor of those who lost their lives.
Yep.
All right. But then we saw in Kenya, for example, whereby it was like, we don't need to go to The Hague. Let's try these individuals at home if necessary, or let's band together and don't send Africans to a foreign court. Now, in this case, what happens? And we're going to talk this morning with Dr. Phil Clark, who wrote a book about how African politics or African ways of doing things would change with cases such as this. And we're joined by Dr. Phil Clark this morning from London, who will give us some insights into all of this and what is going on after spending 20 years in hiding. Good morning, Dr. Clark.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well,
thank you. Welcome to the Situation Room, Dr. Clark.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, the question is, we all know what happened. After 26 years, Felician Kabuga finally arrested and captured in Paris. But the question is, then what now? What happens now? There doesn't seem to be an affinity for him to be tried at home. Where are we?
There's a really big legal fight going on at the moment. Kabuga really like to be prosecuted in France. He made his first appearance in a Paris courtroom last week, and his lawyers were arguing that he should be prosecuted there in Paris. But the United Nations is saying that he should be transferred into their custody. There actually is no possibility that he will go to the ICC. The ICC, in fact, is not part of the Kabuga case. But when the ICTR shut down its operations in Arusha, the UN set up something called the residual mechanism. And it's that UN residual mechanism. It's basically the carry-on institution after the ICTR. That residual mechanism has said they want Kabuga. They have a legal right to prosecute Kabuga. If he goes to the residual mechanism, which I think is the likeliest outcome at the moment, there is a choice about whether he's prosecuted in Arusha or in The Hague, because that UN mechanism has courtrooms in both places. But there's one final possibility, which is that the Rwandan government may lobby for Kabuga to be prosecuted in Kigali. And that really is the crux of the fight at the moment. I think it's going to boil down to a battle between the UN and Rwanda as to who has jurisdiction over this case. From Rwanda's point of view, the government there sees something very powerful in prosecuting Kabuga in Kigali. You could think about this almost as the equivalent of the prosecution of Eichmann in Jerusalem. There's this real desire to see this high-profile genocide fugitive prosecuted in front of the communities that were most affected by the genocide. The UN look like they're digging their heels in. The UN really want Kabuga as the final case before they shut this residual mechanism down. Rwanda wants to see him prosecuted domestically in a courtroom that everyday Rwandans can view firsthand. So it's a big fight at the moment between the UN and Rwanda.
But taking it to Rwanda, if Rwanda had to have his way, and let's say Kabuga is actually being prosecuted in Rwanda, it will be big news locally. Everybody will be following this trial. But would it also stoke those fires of what was happening in 1994? Would those people who feel that maybe Kabuga had a right or had something that he stood for, would they reemerge?
I don't think so. And Kabuga wouldn't be the first high-profile genocide suspect to be prosecuted in Kigali. Rwanda's been dealing with 6 or 7 cases actually transferred from the UN to Rwanda in the last few years. I mean, that's one of the ironies of the Kabuga case is that for the last few years, the UN has actually been getting rid of its cases and sending them off to Rwanda because the UN itself has seen its tribunal as too expensive. It's been desperate to shut it down, and so it's been sending these cases to Kigali. And those cases have received enormous coverage in Rwanda, but we haven't seen any stirring of ethnic tensions around it. Partly too because, I mean, and I'm sure you'll be well aware of this, I mean, Rwanda has now had more than 20 years of prosecutions of genocide cases. Rwandans are very used to a justice process for genocide crimes. One of the ways that happened was through the Gacaca community courts, which prosecuted about 400,000 genocide cases. So the idea of justice for the genocide is not unusual to the Rwandan public. They're very well versed in discussing these justice issues, and we're not seeing ethnic tensions generated by those trials. So I don't think that Kabuga's case is risky in that political sense.
Right. We saw a lot of frosty relations between France and Rwanda when there was a lot of, back and forth about who's hiding Kabuga and who should take a responsibility. Wouldn't a trial in Arusha, or I'm sorry, in Kigali, be kind of justification for Kagame in the sense that, look, bring it back and, the image taint that he had gotten over time for not wanting to do enough about this could change?
The relation between France and Rwanda is a really big part of this Kabuga case. One of the arguments that Kagame and the Rwandan government are making at the moment is there's something very, very suspicious about how long Kabuga was able to live in France.
Yes.
There's a little bit of uncertainty about how long he was there, but there's some suggestion it might have been 5 or 6 years. And he really could only have lived in Paris for that long with very senior people in France knowing about it.
Yes.
So Rwanda sees a trial of Kabuga in Kigali, not only as a way for justice to be seen in front of the Rwandan public, but also as a way, I think, to send a message to the French government that you have no right over this case.
Yeah.
And also, it's a message to the UN, of which, of course, France is a permanent member of the Security Council. You also have no right over this case. The international community has behaved incredibly badly all the way through these episodes. It was the same UN that abandoned Rwanda during the genocide. Members like France not only have given safe haven to the likes of Kabuga, but there's an estimated 20 other quite high-profile Rwandan genocide suspects living in France very freely at the moment. So Rwanda is saying, if anything, France is part of the problem here. And ultimately, France was a big part of the violence in Rwanda, that they were arming and training the Interahamwe, the Hutu militia. So France, the argument in Kigali is the French have no legitimacy to try to deliver justice in the Kabuga case. And so the argument there is, look, he really has to be prosecuted in Kigali.
Professor Phil Clark, you're talking about now the residual mechanism and maybe the UN trying to push and having one last high-profile case before they can come up and say we would like to wind up this whole entire mechanism. But the mechanism was actually primary to the arrest of Kabuga. They were really involved in this, in the investigation, in tracing him and tracking him, and finally getting him arrested by the French authorities with their support. Wouldn't it be just a good thing for them to go ahead and take him to The Hague and prosecute him?
That's certainly the UN's argument, and there's some legitimacy to the claim that without a UN investigation that also involved the governments of Belgium, France, and the United Kingdom, Kabuga would never have been caught. It would have been impossible for the Rwandan authorities on their own to find him. So the UN has some runs on the board in this, in having facilitated arrest. But I think the bigger question here, and in some ways this is the kind of thing that I've been writing about in relation to the ICC for a long time, is that there's something incredibly valuable in seeing the profile suspects prosecuted in the countries where they commit crimes or where they're alleged to have committed crimes. That we miss something really important when these individuals are prosecuted 10,000 miles away in these very distant courtrooms, and you can only see those trials on TV screens. And I've seen this in Rwanda, having watched trials there over the last 20 years or so. It has a huge societal impact in that country for people to be able to watch the justice process directly. And something especially powerful about seeing these former elites who were involved in violence being brought into a very shameful position, standing in the dock, in a way that many genocide survivors never expected would be possible, and seeing prosecution happen there. So, look, there's one other possible outcome in this case we haven't talked about yet, and there is another perspective in Kigali, which is that some powerful Rwandan actors think that the UN probably won't budge on the Kabuga case, that the UN is already showing a certain amount of intransigence. They're not going to give Kabuga up. So there are other voices in Kigali at the moment saying, okay, fine, let's have a UN trial, but let's hold that UN trial in Kigali. So the UN can still control the process. It can still be UN prosecutors and defense lawyers and judges.
Okay.
But let's hold in a Kigali courtroom.
Right.
And so then we get the best of both worlds. The UN gets what it wants. It gets the big end of tribunal case. And Rwandans get what they want, which is the physical holding of this trial in Kigali. And I think there's some purchase to that idea. We may eventually see some kind of compromise on this issue.
Right.
I think so, because looking at the kind of arguments that you've been having, even with the ICC, and saying it's better if people are tried in their home countries. But also, if you look at the nature of these are crimes of an international nature. I think there's the importance of having it being prosecuted by an international court, because it gives in that it sends a message across the globe. If you localize it, then everybody else in the world just thinks, well, this is a Rwanda issue.
The Rwanda issue.
It's the lesson is only applicable to Rwandans and the people in Rwanda. But if it's prosecuted internationally, then it gets some sort of reverberation across the world.
There's another way to look at this, which is this trial is going to get international coverage wherever it's held. If it's held in the Rwandan courts, it'll be front-page news in most international newspapers. So I don't think there's any danger of losing the international significance of this. And also, I think, my own view is that I think this case ultimately should be held inside the Rwandan courts. And the reason for that is that if we are talking about international crimes, it's more important that domestic courts become capable of prosecuting these cases themselves without waiting for some sort of international intervention. Because the UN tribunal is going to wrap up, in a matter of months, possibly another year. The ICC, when it deals with a case even like Kenya, it moves on. It's only there for a year or two, and then the caravan moves on.
Yeah.
What is more important is that what is left are really strong domestic systems that can continue prosecuting cases of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity into the future. And so I think it's much more important that we see strong domestic institutions rather than these itinerant international courts which kind of come and go at the whim of international actors.
Right. So let's take a step into the courtroom now, and if we're going to project into the future, what would we see Felicien Kabuga then being tried for? I mean, there's his rap sheet is quite long here in terms of the charges that could be brought against him. But what would he be tried for as we see it now?
So, as it stands at the moment, he's going to be prosecuted for aiding and abetting the genocide in Rwanda in 1994. So, the crimes that he's accused of are basically about how he used his economic power. He's alleged to have used his considerable finances, firstly to create the Interahamwe militias. So he was there at the time that they were created, and he financed their actions all the way through the genocide. He's also accused of helping to establish and to finance the hate radio station, RTLM, which broadcasts these incendiary messages and which is accused of inciting a great deal of the violence in the genocide. And then he's also accused of being involved in imports of about 500,000 machetes into the country. And of course, those were the principal weapons of the genocide. So if you add all of those charges up, the idea is basically that he bankrolled the genocide. That without him, there just wouldn't have been finance and there wouldn't have been the resources necessary to carry out violence on this scale. So that's why he's really seen as a linchpin in the way the genocide played out.
Professor Phil Clark, Professor of International Politics at the University of London, we thank you very much for joining us this morning and for all your insights.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much,
We'll keep following
Dr.
up on this and get back in touch with you when we have some progress on the case against Felicien Kabuga.
I look forward to discussing it further. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Well, this is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. This conversation continues on our social media handles as well. Spice FM KE on Facebook and Spice FM KE Twitter, Instagram. We're also live streaming on YouTube, remember. And we are live streaming on www.spicefm.co.ke. In the next hour, we'll go into the politics of Jubilee and the Senate. So now the Senate does not have a sitting deputy speaker because the deputy speaker, Kithure Kindiki, was ousted. I wanted to say kicked out, but no, okay, let's just use the word ousted. It was ousted on Friday. The majority side will be looking to sponsor somebody to take over this. The majority side, of course, now here being everybody in that house, apart from like 6 senators who are in the Tanga wing of Jubilee. And they'll be looking to see who is it that they will push into this position. Could it be Margaret Kamar? Could it be the senator for Kirinyaga County? Well, we'll be speaking to the Senate Majority Whip, Irungu Kangata, shortly. Good morning. Speaking of, the ICC, said if a trial happens at home, it has an impact. It has a huge impact in terms of even the optics.
Yeah.
That locally we are able to pursue and get justice for victims of injustices. In Kenya, in 2007, there was massive injustice, post-election violence. Professor Waki, Justice Waki came and, investigated this and said, we can do something. We can establish a local tribunal to try all these cases. And if you don't do that, then I'll hand over this envelope to the ICC. And the ICC will open up. Will open the investigations against Kenya. What happened in Kenya? Don't be vague.
Let's go
to the Hague. From the political class, it was clear what they were saying. What they were saying is we don't want to deal with this thing. There were two sides. One side wanted to see severe punishment for their political enemies. And the other side was thinking, well, international court will take forever before it picks up. And then here locally, if you have this kind of case locally, this case locally will affect our own chances of advancing our politics. Now, there's the issue of trust. What did the public feel about that? The public was also feeling, no. Let's take it to the Hague.
Yeah.
Why? Because we don't trust
that
there's going to be justice delivered.
Justice will be served here.
Kenya,
Yeah, forget it. And sabotage is likely to happen locally. And we will probably not see such a high level of sabotage and the ICC. Look, that's the thing. Unfortunately, that's the case. And you hear now, but you hear that people would have said, oh, no. Do it here, forget it. People are going to be walking free. That case will be tried very quickly.
Who are you going to take to that court?
Who will prosecute?
Which judge will sit? So judge will sit, I'm sitting here, yeah. What do you want? Yeah, let's have the next hearing in 2022. And that is in 2008.
We're collecting information.
Carrying
out investigations.
Yeah. Change the DPP, change the DCI, change the investigating officer, change this, change the other, change the Chief Justice, change the Justice of the Constitutional Court, change the Court of Appeal, change everyone, just to ensure that this case does not move. Because this is what Kenyans are used to, like Yegon and the others are saying. This government delivering.
No.
We promise no stone shall be left unturned. How many times have we heard that?
No, they're still unturning the stone.
No stone shall be left unturned until we unearth and we go to the bottom of this scandal.
It's a stone per year, but that's just a minor detail.
Those are pebbles.
Really matter. It doesn't really matter.
They deal with pebbles all the time. It's just about that and the other, Our friend Davis, the rapper, is calling from Thika. Davis, good morning.
Hello,
how are you?
Good morning.
Yeah, you forgot to ask one thing, the professor.
Yeah.
Some people lost their lives, like two Kenyans, a telecom expert and a freelance journalist lost their lives because of Kabuga.
Yep.
So, how will these people get their justice? Because Kabuga's actions have left a trail.
That's true. There's the issue of who else worked with Kabuga and whether that is also being followed up. And there's the issue of the justice for people like those ones that we were saying. They're journalists, their family. They've been in every court, in every office in this country, trying just to get justice. Even the investigators admitting that this man did not die of carbon monoxide. He was actually shot through the ear. And it's taken forever to get that admission.
Okay, number two, I want to comment on this Tanzania issue. You know, Eric, Wakenya wamekuwa wakikejeli huyu Magufuli. I don't know why. What I know is that there are more wrong things about Kenya than Tanzania. Can I give you one?
Yes.
Yes, one.
Kenya is a fragmented state. The president addresses the country twice during this COVID. In English
and in Kiswahili.
Does it mean there are two segments of Kenyan society? Sasa peleka message kwa Kanze Dena.
Wafanye Kiswahili yote.
Hiyo address ya rais, the written speech, should be in Kiswahili, and there should only be one speech.
Okay.
You travel outside this country, you'll see it all over.
That's what happens everywhere else.
You go to Turkey, where we got the ferry from, everything is done in Turkish.
Okay.
You go to China, the same. Rwanda, the Minister for Health talks in Kinyarwanda. Tanzania is just next door. Ethiopia.
Sisi ni watu wa kizungu bana.
No, lakini I think Kenya is too anglicized.
We get your point, though. We get your point.
Understood.
Thank you very much for calling in, Davis. Have a good day.
And then for Jubilee,
Yes.
this thing of the Ruto wing blaming the Uhuru wing, one thing is very clear. Jubilee is just one, and it has failed Kenyans. I was very surprised about this Sholei. I think she's a lawyer, and she has a lot of baggage. She left at the judiciary, not remembering that Ruto emanated from a criminal enterprise called YK92.
We've introduced another long topic. Actually, we'll be discussing that in the next hour. Maybe you can tune in and call us back. It's now 9 o'clock. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Today's proverb: if one does not chew water, he does not know that water has bones. Good morning.
Spice up your roads. It's a quiet day on most major roads today. Few people out and about, but I don't think it's going to cause us any problems today. If anything does pop up, we'll be takers of that information. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Let us know what it is that you see. But for now, you won't have any problems going round.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This
no, where is it? Allah, I had it. It was right here. Yes, page 10 of the Standard. Tough times drive city folk to sell fresh food from their cars. This is showing a vibrant car boot sale has sprung up along the northern bypass, where fresh food and vegetables are the most sought-after commodity. And the story goes to tell the story of these people who are coming, parking their cars, selling fresh food. Why? These people were not vegetable traders before COVID-19.
No.
They were doing other business, taxi drivers or whatever other business. And now people have to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And this is what is happening. Navy BMW X1 was parked outside Equity Bank along the Kasarani Mwiki Road, its boot open. The back seats had been folded flat and a thick plastic sheet was stretched over them. A heap of purple-red onions populated the interior. A small digital weighing scale hung from the door of the boot. David Kimani, the loan seller, stood at the side as a small crowd milled around the car. Buyers rummaged through the pungent vegetables, picking the biggest bulbs and dropping them into the bags. Next to him was a Toyota Probox, and a peek inside the open boot revealed green hue of fresh maize. Kimani was dressed in a striped light blue V-neck t-shirt and a pair of jeans, looked out of place selling farm produce out of his German machine, fancy watch and all. The 32-year-old IT consultant said he had been rendered jobless after international flights were stopped to curb the spread of the coronavirus. The contracts I had involved a lot of flying out of the country. I cannot do that anymore, so I had to find some way to keep myself occupied. Kimani's predicament is not unique. He's among thousands of Kenyans who have lost their regular sources of income as the pandemic wreaks havoc in the economy. People are finding other ways of doing stuff. This is an IT consultant. He had contracts he was servicing locally and internationally, had a lifestyle that he was living. Now he has been forced to take his BMW, fold the seats, put onions, and go and sell on the side of the road because he must put food on the table. And when the president says we cannot continue living like this, this is the kind of stuff he's reflecting. Look, there's a huge impact. However, and I kept asking you, Kenya is not the only country that has lockdown. In fact, Kenya has not gone on lockdown. Uganda and Rwanda have gone on lockdown. South Africa has been on lockdown for more than how many days now?
Oh, gosh.
Over a month.
Over a month.
Okay. So we can say that South Africa is one of the big economies. Yeah, Kenya is one of those big economies in Africa. In fact, we should not even be talking about Rwanda. We should be comparing ourselves. What's happening in Nigeria? What's happening in Egypt? What's happening in South Africa? So when a government is saying, we've gotten to a point where we need to open up the economy because people have got to continue living. And we are going to distribute some money, 250 million shillings, to support our people, most vulnerable. And the people that we are saying are most vulnerable are 100,000 people in a population of 47 million.
The people that they are saying they have identified are 120,000. I mean, even that. And I think it's always been assumed that the people in this case that are vulnerable are those people who live in, slums, for example, slum dwellers. And that's who the vulnerable have been sent to be. But I mean, suffice to say that this goes across board. You've just talked about a gentleman who worked in IT and should have had, a cushion, as it were, and didn't. So, I mean, vulnerable in this case should have included those individuals who lost their jobs, somebody who would need some kind of welfare, somebody who would need a bridging, solution until things get better. And I think, unfortunately, vulnerable took into consideration individuals that were vulnerable before COVID.
Yeah.
And if we're looking at this, it should have been then plus those who would have become vulnerable as a result of COVID.
But there are those, and the government is saying that it's taking care of them. The 53 billion shillings stimulus program that the president unveiled on Saturday is meant to address everybody. However, when you're talking about Mr. Kimani parking his BMW there trying to sell onions, is because he needs that help today.
No. Yeah.
By the time you're talking about, we're going to hire 100,000 nurses, or we're going to hire how many teachers, we're going to put money into local manufacturing. This is local car assembly, and the government is going to buy this number of cars. By the time the government buys those cars, it's going to be a while. In fact, even by the time the government goes to Thika Road and tells the local Volkswagen that we are coming to buy X vehicles, so start making them, it's going to be a while. So the local plant in Thika is not going to start hiring people because serikali imesema. No way.
No. So many different things have to be taken into consideration to make such things happen. And this is my problem, is that when blanket statements are made like this, the vagaries of all of it are seldom taken into consideration. There's so many things, there's so many boxes that need to be ticked in order for this one thing to happen. Even when we talked about quarantine for everybody, so many things needed to happen for that one thing to happen. When you talk about, just like you've said, manufacturing locally, for that, do you know how many things need to happen? So many boxes have to be ticked in order for that thing to happen. So it sounds ambitious, it sounds fantastic, it sounds great for the economy, sounds great for the country. But have we put in the checks and balances that are needed for that process then to take place? And unfortunately, more often than not, the answer is no.
It sounds like one of those things that happens every time. When the president is going to open parliament, he gives a speech and his wish list. This is what my government wants to do this year. We'll come up with a law on this. We'll come up with a budgetary proposal for this. We'll do this and the other. When the CS for Treasury is unveiling his budget statement in Parliament, when he's reading his budget speech, it sounds beautiful. We're going to allocate this amount of money because we need to, spur the economic growth from this side, this quarter, this sector of the economy. Does it happen? It takes forever. Let's just read those 8 points. The 8-point economic stimulus package by the president. 1, 5 billion shillings to hire local labor for rehabilitation of access roads and footbridges. So these are the roads and footbridges that have been destroyed by floods. Because we're talking about rehabilitating. We are not talking about building a new road. We are talking about repairs.
The one that's there.
So 5 billion shillings is going to be used to hire local labor. By the time we are actually talking about a local bridge in a local village somewhere that has been swept away, and people, we've seen clips of people being swept away by floods because we're trying to cross somewhere precarious. There's no bridge nearby. The bridge swept away. By the time that bridge is repaired, what is the process? What's the process of getting that done? Number 2, 6.5 billion shillings being sent to the Ministry of Education to hire 10,000 teachers and 1,000 ICT interns to support digital learning and acquisition of 250,000 locally fabricated desks. On paper, this sounds very good. Because when you're talking about hiring 10,000 new teachers, those are 10,000 people who were previously jobless, who now have an income, who now have a salary, who now can spend in their local economies. Have we hired the nurses and doctors that we were hiring for COVID?
No, the process is ongoing.
Yeah.
As we have been informed as late as last week.
We decided to dedicate 1 billion shillings out of our UHC to hire medical workers in this period. It still hasn't happened. How long do you suppose it's going to take before you hire 10,000 teachers and 1,000 ICT interns?
That should have happened a while ago.
This is a stimulus package because we're in COVID and people are at home and people have lost their incomes. We are going to have 250,000 locally fabricated desks. So what's the process for this? Is it school hires desks? Is it money that's going to the school boards of management? We'll be speaking to our colleague Siti Muga, who's chilling at home, and he'll tell us, he's the chairman of a board of management. How do they procure desks? For their local school. So when you say 250,000 locally fabricated desks, 250,000 are how many schools? One per desk, one desk per school.
Per school. That's basically what it is. If you want to spread it across board, right? And I think this is the thing, that once you're telling people that this is what we want to do, you lay out this ambitious plan, right? It is necessary to have the details of how this is going to roll out so that people also understand this is what is meant to happen. Because now what happens? We start to ask these questions and you're not really sure. By the time you ask another question or 3, it's wrapped up in some kind of ambiguity, and unfortunately, in most cases, it's thrown out the window. I would not want a situation whereby people have been told that this and this and this is what's going to happen, but we don't have the details. Look at the emergency fund, for example. Suffice to say that till today, they don't know how they're going to disperse this money.
We don't know whether they've been dispersing the money.
We don't know if they've started giving it out. We don't know if there are people who have been recipients of this and has actually helped them in their livelihoods. We don't know. So even to tell people, yes, we're start a fund, such and such people from the private sector or from wherever, start a fund, start it. How they're going to, till now, they've not told the public how this is going to happen. And this is a problem.
And the good thing is they have actually been able to raise 3 billion shillings.
3.7 billion, just 300 million short of 4 billion.
3.7 billion shillings. The president's stimulus package is 53.7 billion shillings. All right. So 3.7 billion shillings. If I just look at where this money can go, 3 billion shillings, number 3 of the president's stimulus program, 3 billion is going as seed capital for SMEs credit guarantee scheme. That equivalent of that has been raised by Kenyans to support Kenyans. 3B. This fund, it must be working. But we don't know where the money is going.
We don't. This is sad. This is. And if we're going to continue going, this is why you have so many people in just an hour ago who were telling us that, because of things like this is the reason why we don't trust the government. And that is why when you tell us to stay home and do this or the other thing, it's not because we don't care for our lives. It's because we do care for our lives and we want to do something about it. And you previously have shown us that you actually don't care enough to do something about it. That's why we're unfortunately not going to be able to do what you say.
And let's be fair to Kenyans, by the way. We're talking about traffic coming back onto the roads. It means that traffic had actually reduced, which means that people had actually obeyed these instructions. When people are told, work from home as much as possible, people worked from home as much as possible until they realized we're on our own.
This is enough.
The person who told me, just get into the house, I'm coming, has not come. You do this, just stay indoors, I'm coming. Wacha niende hivi naenda hivi nakam. Still naenda hivi. Same one told us, I'm setting up a fund so that we can help the people who are vulnerable. That fund has raised 3 billion shillings. Still, you're waiting. And you're supposed to wait at home and wait for that.
Interestingly enough, they've set up this fund, and just as we know how much they've raised is when we hear that they want to open up the economy again. So then speculation is rife. What happens then to that fund? If people are going back to work and you're going to open up the economy, so all this money that has been collected to help these same Kenyans, where is it going to go? Do you see problems?
It's 9:15. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll be trying to reach out to Senator Irungu Kang'ata. He is the Senate Majority Whip. We want to find out what plans do they have for reconstituting. Well, not reconstituting. Yes, some of those Senate committees, reconstituting the Senate committees and the leadership of the Senate committees, and also the election of a Deputy Speaker of the Senate. We'll also be linking up with our colleague, C.T. Muga, the paragon of wisdom, to hear how he's doing and tell us what he thinks about the government measures. He's been sitting at home, basically working from home, doing a lot of research on this. What is coming up? It's got to be big time. Good morning. 9:15.
Certain parts of Nairobi this morning, we're going to see mostly cloudy conditions for most parts of the day. Highs of 25 and lows of 14. Taking a look into Nyeri, where the showers were coming down earlier this morning, still is the case at 16. We'll see highs of 23 and lows of 14. Then taking a look into Nakuru, partly cloudy conditions at 18 degrees with highs of 25 and lows of 13. Eldoret is mostly sunny this morning at 17 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 11. Taking a look into Kisumu, where it's partly cloudy conditions. It will be clear skies later on, and then mostly sunny, currently at 23 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 19. Mombasa sees us with mostly cloudy conditions at 27 degrees, rain coming in the afternoon with highs of 28 and lows of 24. Malindi at 28 degrees, showers have already begun this morning, likely to be a wet afternoon with highs of 29 and lows of 25. Kampala is mostly sunny this morning at 23 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 18 with showers in the afternoon. Dar es Salaam is partly cloudy at 26 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 23 with showers in the afternoon. Johannesburg takes us with mostly sunny conditions throughout the day at 12 degrees currently, highs of 18 and then cooling down to a low of 6. And in Lagos this morning, it's light thunderstorms still being experienced at 26 degrees. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 24 today, but it will be a wet Monday. Let's take a look then into Paris, where now that the sun is out, it's sunny conditions at 14 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 12. Taking a look then into London, it's sunny conditions all through today at 13 degrees with highs of 25 and lows of 12. And we'll wrap things up for today in New York, where it's cloudy conditions at 15 degrees, highs of 22 and lows of 14.
18 minutes after 9, this is a situation. Eid Mubarak. We're broadcasting from Nairobi, 94.4, Mombasa, 87.9. 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7,
Spice up your life.
90.9 in Nyeri, and 97.7 in Malindi. In the room is
Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
and on the line.
Spice
is
up yourself.
CT Muga. Good morning, CT.
Good morning.
Mambo namna gani?
In an earlier time when I could have been referred to as a youth, they used to say Mambo Bam Bam.
Mambo bam bam.
Yes.
Good morning, CT.
Morning, do.
Well, now, CT, you've taken some time to study our government. I'm sure you'll be giving us insights as we go along this week and as we expect you back after this short hiatus.
Yes, Eric.
So, first of all,
yes,
the president says you should come back to work. This thing of lockdown is not going to work.
You know something, huh? One of sometimes you get the impression that when governments try to issue policies or try to make headway of what's happening within the country, you get the impression that they are stabbing in the dark. But what we see happening in Kenya here is the sort of thing you often see when a country has been threatened by an external force, or it has some a catastrophe that they had never considered, like say countries like the U.S. in 1929 when they had a depression.
Yeah.
You suddenly realize that this isn't the time to go around playing opposition politics and tearing each other's hair. You need to pull together. You can go back to that game of playing opposition politics later, but at that time, the interest of the country now takes precedence. Yes, but this one in true Kenyan style, they're trying to do everything at the same time. Trying to sort that one out. Well, one, they're trying to sort out internal wrangles among themselves. But this isn't something also new. Usually, if you want to head in a certain direction, you want with you people who you feel are on the same page as you. Anyone who seems to have a different script will not help your cause, so you want to put them aside. So again, it isn't unusual for what we're seeing in the country to happen.
What did we saying that it would be unfair also to expect that the politicians would be doing something different? I mean, the politicians, their job is this.
The politicians usually are, let me put it this way, they're like a litmus test. Huh? They also know how to read the signs of the times. They are not entirely insensitive to what is happening. When you look at this country right now, we are we'll be affected by floods. But the locusts didn't go anywhere.
No, they're still here.
Just in case you forget, and they're breeding.
Yeah.
And then you have a situation like this one with a lockdown caused by COVID-19, and the suffering that we've spoken about in the past has not decreased, rather, it has increased. Members of parliament, I'm sure, have more than they know what to do because their constituents will not let them breathe. People have problems. Now, in such a situation, any politician will know that the one thing you want to do is you want to be on the right side of the electorate because 2022 is not far away. So right now, they may be on a pleasing mission. They will want to do things that they feel the electorate will agree with. And anything that they think the electorate might not agree with, they will actually move away from. So if you look at our politicians and you ask, are they going to do the same things that they normally do? Politicians do the things they've been doing with impunity when they know they can get away with it. 2022 is not far away, Eric. So they're not going to suddenly start doing crazy things that people will remember in 2022.
They will still do what they expected to do.
They will pretend that they are the people who are elected and they are trying to look after the interest of the constituents and the public with 2022 in mind.
But what we were saying earlier with Ndu is that this COVID-19 and especially the kind of containment measures, the measured containment measures that the government came up with, block people from leaving the Nairobi metropolitan area, from Kilifi, from Mombasa and Kwale, also now going into tighter areas like saying Eastleigh, just do not leave or enter Eastleigh or do not leave or enter Old Town. and asking people to stay at home as much as possible has had a huge impact. Now, it's exposing the government, and the government now is at a point where people are looking up to it and saying, look, you asked us to stay indoors. We stayed indoors. We expect that you're going to come and help us. You expect that you're going to come and come up with programs that are going to address our immediate plight. And now, people are going hungry. People have lost incomes. People are not able to pay rent, to buy food. And the government is at a point where it's feeling completely exposed. Because if this situation continues, voices will increase. They'll hit a crescendo where the government will be at a corner and wondering, how do I tell the people you can eat cake if you don't have bread?
It requires a seismic shift in the way the government thinks, or the people who are in government. When we talk of government, remember, they are the bureaucrats who nobody knows and nobody will ever know, who actually ensure that things happen. This group of people really know what ought to be done, and it's not that they don't advise appropriately, they do. Now, it's those who are supposed to implement. That's where things start going a little left. Because then the self-interest comes in, and it takes center stage. And we see all the crazy stuff we keep seeing. But in addition to what the government is doing, if they could throw a few people in jail and let them stay there, or some permanently, it would help people understand that you are not getting away with this. But so long as all we're seeing is infighting, we're seeing realignment, but we don't see culprits who we hold responsible for some of the mess that we've been in, simply walking free and enjoying their ill-gotten wealth, then even when the government makes effort, that effort will be futile because no one will believe them. And as it is, the government isn't doing very well on that sphere. They are fighting, in many ways, a losing battle. People do not trust the government. So what we're saying is, if you have a trust deficit of that nature, there is a great need to try and recover and build that trust yet again. And I think this is where now the recovery plan that the president came up with comes in, because that's the government showing that we are thinking of what to do and we have a plan.
But CT, this is not new. What they're telling us now, 53.7 billion shillings set up for the economic recovery. This is a stimulus program. This kind of talk, I'm sorry to say, I've heard it before, even if not in these particular words, or with this kind of money, or with this number of 8 points. We've heard it before. We have heard of the Big Four agenda. This is 2 years down the road. Big Four agenda, we don't know how far it's gone. We have heard of all these other projects that talk about helping the population. Even the small matter of clearing pending bills. It's still a topic of discussion and conversation today. One of the points in the economic stimulus package is setting aside money to clear pending bills and VAT refunds. Why are we still talking about VAT refunds now, when the president said this shall be cleared within 3 weeks?
You know, when a government is at war with itself, one arm of the government will issue edicts and say this ought to be done. Another arm of government will probably be doing the complete opposite. The way I see it, remember, what choice does the government have except to try and show up confidence by saying we do have a plan? It's not as though we are just stabbing in the dark and we don't know what's happening. They have to come up and say we are trying to do this. They don't have any other option, because to keep quiet will be completely detrimental to them.
I think in this particular case, what the government ought to have done is picked 1 point. Because the reason why people, and the callers who were telling us earlier, and we'll open the phone lines again to hear what people think, the reason why people have lost trust in the government is because the government keeps coming up with plans and telling us things. In 6 months' time, the stadium at Kamarin will be complete. In 4 months' time, the stadium in Water, and all these kind of things. You know, if we are elected into government, this is what we are going to do. We'll ensure that every major town has free Wi-Fi.
Unfortunately,
and this become jokes.
I mean, unfortunately, you often say that by the time you're giving somebody a job, is that you're going to look at their track record in other jobs that they have done, right? And then you will say that based on what you've done previously, then we will assume that you would be able to be good at this. In this case, it's exactly the same thing. Based on what a government has been able to do, or in this case, not do previously, it is upon that we say, then in this case as well, we don't trust that they're going to be able to do anything about it. So we will continue on our own as with business as usual. It's a sorry state of affairs, but that's how Kenyans feel.
But that feeling isn't wrong. This government are hopeless liars. They have lied from day one. That we know. But you see, what I was saying was that if you were the government, what other options do you have but to come up with yet another plan and say, guys, try and hold me accountable on this one. I know the other ones haven't quite worked out, but there's this new one that we have. The only problem is that, given that we are in Kenya, we know that the moment that is announced, there are people who are lining up and figuring, how do we eat this one?
Yep.
Now, what I'm saying is this, there are no other options that the government has. It doesn't have any other option.
So the only option is to come up with what appears to be another lie.
Actually, until they do anything about it, we will have the same attitude we had towards the others. So we're saying, okay, you've come up with this one here. Let's see what you're going to do with it. Because really, even us as a nation, us as citizens, how many other options do we really have?
I think one of the options is just don't tell us. Surprise us by doing.
You know something? It is not, that would not be wise.
Why?
If you are a government. Because if you keep quiet, then you allow the minds of the citizenry to roam free. And man, you don't know what direction it can roam in. You are better off saying this because people will say, okay, let's give them another chance. One of the things that Kenyans do well, Kenyans are a hopeful lot, and we don't have difficulty in giving our governments and our politicians a second chance. We don't.
Yeah.
We give them even third chances. So let's take the view that when they say these things, we'll say, okay, this is a stimulus package. They say they're going to do A, B, C, D. Remember, the Big Four agenda, if you want to be brutally honest, the Big Four agenda actually was not the Big Four agenda. The Big Four agenda was just renaming what the Constitution states categorically the government must do for its people. Yes. If you're talking about housing, the Constitution talks about it. If you're talking about the universal health, the Constitution talks about it. The only thing the Constitution doesn't talk about is manufacturing. Yes, but everything else that is constitutes the Big Four agenda is in the Constitution.
Yeah.
So they were merely taking what's already in the Constitution and telling us that we have this new agenda. There was nothing new about that particular agenda.
This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. On the line is C.T. Muga. In the studio is Ndu Oko and Eric Latif. Let's take a look at traffic and then come back and we'll open the phone lines again and ask, why is it that Kenyans have gotten to a point where they are so kichwangumu? When the government asks you, stay at home, you don't stay at home. When the government tells you, move from higher grounds, you are likely to be affected by landslides and floods. People are like, I am not going. Why is it that we've gotten to this kind of point? Good morning. 9:30.
Road on the acceleration lanes. It's a busy exchange, and this is what could actually save lives. That's going to be the hotspot for us to look at today. Quite a number of accidents that happened on Mombasa Road over the weekend, and unfortunately quite a number of lives were lost. So we do have some vehicles, some trucks even now parked on the acceleration lane on Mombasa Road. You need to understand that these vehicles are actually moving very slowly, but moving all the same. We have a day when there's not much traffic and people are tempted to move a lot quicker than they normally would. So please be very, very careful. You could save a life and yours. Apart from that, we're not going to have many traffic incidents this morning. In case you do see something we should know about, don't hesitate. Let us know. Spice FM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter.
Fellow Kenyans, in the last 4 months, the government has come to you on various occasions. Now, in fact, in the last 3 months,
spice up your
on a
life.
daily basis, urging you to observe
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
One of the measures is quarantine. Go into quarantine. Go into self-quarantine.
Mornings
just
done right.
From any of these
94.4
have reported cases of COVID. You did not obey that. Government said, all right, so we are going to put you in a quarantine facility. You're going to foot the bill because now, surely...
there was a problem.
Yeah, there's a problem. And we expect you to stay in that quarantine facility. And then you come out and go home. And if you test positive, we shall put you in an isolation facility. What happened? Many went into the quarantine facilities. Some are reported to have gone into partying sprees in those quarantine facilities. One. The other one now, the government has said, all right, so quarantine free of charge. Go to quarantine. How many cases are we hearing of people who have taken off from quarantine facilities? Across the country, many. Go to quarantine for free. Take off. Fellow Kenyans, the government has even said, look, we are now coming to test in your neighborhood. Come, give us your contact details, your telephone number, your name, where you live, and then we test you. Should we find that you are COVID-19 positive, we shall get in touch with you. We shall take you in an isolation facility at government expense. You're not going to pay anything. And then your family members shall be put in a quarantine facility at government expense. You are not going to cough a shilling. What happens? People are giving wrong information, wrong name, wrong telephone number. So the details come back with test results and this person does not exist in our database. Fellow Kenyans, the government is asking you, there are floods around the country, across the country. Very many places are flooding. Please move to higher ground, those who are in lowland, and those who are in higher grounds that have risk of landslide, please move to other areas. Kenyans are like, no, we are not moving. Fellow Kenyans, sasa mnataka tufanye nini? Why is it that Kenyans are so kichwa ngumu?
What's the problem?
You hear the government telling you something like, no. The government announced we have one case of COVID-19. This is a passenger who had arrived from America via London. They went to Rungai. Now we have this person in hospital. No, hakuna corona. They wanted World Bank money. The government comes and says, these two people, these are Kenyans. This man, this woman, they have gone through isolation. Now they have tested negative for COVID-19. No way, this is government PR. What is it? Why don't Kenyans trust the government, CT Muga?
Why doesn't the government tell the truth?
Where? What truth do you want? It's gonna flood.
There's corona.
You know,
There's corona.
Eric, allow me to explain something here when I say why doesn't the government tell the truth? Huh?
Yep.
Every time a government is elected or voted in, people hope. That's what we do. The currency we have with it, we hope. And we say we are hoping that this government is going to fulfill the promises it made. We don't actually expect them to fulfill each and every promise, but we expect the government to fulfill some promises that are visible and we can see, they have done this, they have achieved this, and this is what they said they would do. When on the scale, when you want to balance the promises versus the fulfilled promises, you suddenly find that the fulfilled promises remain precisely, should we say, at a minimum, and the promises remain at a maximum, meaning the promises are just their promises. Over a period of time, remember this is the second term of this government, not the first term. So, by the time you get to a second term and you have 2 more years of government, surely have you not been given enough time to fulfill these promises?
You have.
Precisely. Now, if the citizenry can see that these promises aren't being fulfilled, let's take something that is at the heart of the wananchi. You go to county governments and you find citizenry. The counties, because that's their county.
Yep.
People are owed money, and that money is simply not being paid. Services have been rendered. People are becoming paupers, not because they are poor, but because they haven't been paid. And yet, money is given for them to be paid. you expect these people to have faith in the government. They will not have faith in the government. Because they will now blame the government for their poverty. They'll say, if I hadn't gone into business with the government, I wouldn't be in this sort of problem. And yet, these are the same citizens who pay taxes faithfully. And they say, look, we do our bit. The government doesn't seem to do. Now, all this, one could say, well, there are problems. Where now it really begins to bite, and where it really, 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 really stands out as something bizarre, is then you hear of government money being lost. This is me being polite. Being lost on some issues of a dam, being lost in the Ministry of Health, being lost. And you wonder, goodness gracious me, what on earth is happening here?
So this is why now people just get to a point where they feel government one side, me the other side.
They feel, but this is something they've been feeling for some time. It's just that COVID has actually exposed this underbelly to a greater degree. Because even with this issue of quarantine, the same thing that we are being told now is what we were told at the beginning. And lo and behold, people were told this is at government cost. Then you suddenly find you're being told to pay. You suddenly find that you're being taken to a place you didn't ask to go to, and you're being given a bill that it was all a complete mess.
From the very beginning.
Now, it was a mess. Added on to the previous messes that the government had been involved in. Now, it's not all hopeless. It's not all hopeless. All the government needs to do is to show that it's fulfilling the promises that it has made, and talk about it and say, we said we're going to do this and we're doing it. Here it is. Start by paying the people you owe money. Let them be paid. Something simple. You have the money, pay them. When people are paid.
Yeah. Well, it sounds almost, quite simplistic, but I think the way through this is actually quite simple. Without saying anything else, I mean, try to put aside the temptation to want to promise something to the people, because it's a very good thing to do when you realize that something is amiss. You want to then go out and overpromise, hoping that you will get yourselves back in the good books of the people. In this case, this is not going to happen. So what would make sense, I agree with that, is at some point to say, okay, let's do an audit of these promises that we've made. Just take one. Fulfill one.
Yep.
And it has some kind of automatic bringing back into the good books for the people. That's what it would do. So you show the people at some point that actually, you know what? Okay, these guys are, number one, capable of actually doing what it is that they said they were going to do. And number two, maybe see some merit in actually keeping their word to the people upon which you have been given the mandate to govern. Right? So just one thing that you said you would do, just do that one thing. And you would actually find that you who has fulfilled that one thing, there's a feel-good factor involved, and you would want to do some more. Because guess what? As we always say, development begets development. You do it, you feel good that you've done something, chances are you probably want to do some more.
And the government can. Every once in a while something happens, like when the former president, Moi, was being buried. And Nyayo Stadium, the usual things that happen, somebody was supposed to spruce it up, and God alone knows what they're doing, picking their noses or patting their bums. Then all of a sudden, the president himself goes to the stadium, and lo and behold, what do you have? Man, the stadium is spanking, everything is in place.
Great.
And then the actual funeral, my goodness, it was a work of art. Everything on time, everything. It was a beautiful thing to watch. What does it tell you? If the government wants to fulfill the promises, it can. Yes, it can. There are enough people in government who would do the right thing, who would actually willingly do what needs to be done. It's those elements who keep doing, subverting the good. Those are the people who should be removed, and people who are willing to work and do what they're supposed to do, left in place. And it's not as though these people who are always subverting and doing things that work against the interest of the citizen, they are not known. They are known.
They're known.
They are known. Get rid of them. Why do you keep keeping them in the government? Get rid of them.
But
there are people who will willingly do what they are supposed to do.
If you start with the basics, since COVID-19 came into place, right?
Yes.
The president has made several promises. Basically, how we are going to address the war against COVID.
Yes.
He said we are going to dedicate 1 billion shillings to hire extra health workers in this period so that we can fight COVID. You'd expect that because this is an emergency, even how you're going to hire these people is going to be treated as an emergency. So people are going to be hired and people are going to be trained and be put into service immediately. This is still ongoing. The president said, we are going to fast track that payment that you're talking about of pending bills. It was to be fast tracked. And it was to happen within 30 days of his announcement. It was part of what he was talking about on Saturday. He talked about VAT refunds. It was part of what... So, yes, there are people who can say that they have been paid in their pending bills, but not everybody has been paid in the pending bills. So, Eric, look at these kind of things. If a promise like that was just actualized, that we can see, we said we are going to hire rapid hire of doctors.
Health workers.
And here they are. Health workers, here they are. Now, COVID, come. As guys are said, we are still talking about going through the whole recruitment process. It was advertised in the papers. People are going to be called for interviews here and the other. You get their contract. Why?
Eric, the president doesn't hire people. What you've just discussed or what you've just said is the sign that you have a government that's fighting within itself, fighting itself. The president says this, somebody else goes and does something else. The president says this, somebody goes and does something else. Because everyone knows that when an edict of that sort is issued, it's not as though the president woke up and just opened his mouth and spoke. No. It was discussed. It was understood. The resources, everything is understood, and we're told we can do this. So the president goes and says, we're going to do this because he's been reassured this can get done. And then somebody somewhere subverts it. And this has been consistent. I don't believe that the president has simply been speaking because he needs to speak. No. He has been reassured that these things he's saying can be done.
Of course. But you see, here's the issue that I'm talking about, CT, all right? So you as the president, when you say that this is what we are going to do, and this is an immediate, we're not talking about something that will take 1 year. This is what we need to do now. We need to hire medics to fight COVID now. Among the things, and the president is a powerful office, all right? If the president says, I want a report daily, at the end of every day, how long is it going to take us to hire these doctors? When is the first medic going to be going through training for COVID? If you say 2 weeks, then from now, for the next 14 days, I want a daily report of where this progress has been. We'd have had these doctors in place. But, it just goes, so the process, the PSC, the Public Service Commission announced this thing in the papers, advertised for the jobs. Then they received thousands of applicants. Then the process was now going to the county public service boards. It's stuck somewhere at the county public service boards. It's not clear whether the county public service boards are hiring, county public service boards have hired, whether these people have received their contracts, whether they are, because they need to be trained. We were talking about training all the healthcare workers.
You've gone ahead of yourself, Eric. If it gets to the county, people are determining whose relatives are going to employ them and who's...
You see now?
Yeah, you've gone ahead of yourself. The moment it goes to the county, But remember something else. Huh? We have underestimated just the sort of infighting that this government has had within itself. For me, it's clear. By the time the government gets into what we've been seeing, what we saw in Senate, and what we can anticipate happening elsewhere, it isn't just a political maneuver. It isn't just politics. Somewhere along the line, this has to do with what we're discussing right now. You are the same government. Some are pulling left, the others are pulling right. Within government, within day-to-day functions of the government, forget the politics. So, I am hoping that when this purge that clearly has begun comes to an end, that we are going to see services that are actually intended to benefit the wananchi, not infighting.
There you go again as a Kenyan, giving a new lease of life. This is like what?
I have to. The reason why I have to, Eric, is this. Everything that the government says it wants to do, it can do.
And yet it doesn't.
The question that we ought to be asking is, okay, if we think there's something else we can do to ensure that they do it, what is it that we can do to guarantee that they do these things that they're supposed to be doing?
Stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. Start from there.
All right. And if you stop giving them benefit of the doubt, what then do?
You demand. You don't just sit back and say, all right, so now let's see. Now, because we know
we know that they're going to behave in
what we're trying
way,
to look,
so
what we're trying to look for, CT, is we're trying to look for ways in which we can actually excuse them. Now that there's a purge happening in the Senate and there's another purge happening in the National Assembly, and we have a new DPP and a new DCI and EACC, and they're working, I think this thing is going to happen. And then we realize it does not happen.
It's not actually working.
The stadia have not come to pass. The Wi-Fi has not happened. Hiring of doctors for COVID has not happened. These things are not happening. When we sit back and you're like, okay, not just one, maybe this time. Those guys are just, they come up with new words every time just to play around with our mind.
I think there's also the mentality that, just as you're saying, you talked about, CT, Kenyans being generally forgiving and people of second chances. The people in the leadership are aware of this sentiment as well. And they know that at some point, no matter how annoyed Kenyans might get or, apathetic to the situation, they're going to give them another chance to be able to sort it out. Now, without the demanding of such things to be done on whatever level or whatever forum you want to use to agitate for that, if that doesn't happen, then they also know that, all right, that we can get around with it round 3, round 4 and get away with it and we'll be fine. So I can come and I can make a promise and I can get the entire nation on edge again and say, okay, well, he's thinking about us and something is going to be done. And, we'll get back into a lull once again and then come back and feed it again. And it just becomes a vicious cycle of promising and not fulfilling. Promising and not fulfilling, knowing full well that the people are not going to make a demand for these things that you've told them that you would in the first place. So I think that's the problem. Get into this vicious cycle where then nothing is churned out. You put in milk and you don't get butter, unfortunately.
And we are so accustomed to getting big figures. In fact, that's what now gets us excited. You hear big figures, 53.7 billion shilling stimulus package. We are going to spend 600 million on locally manufactured cars. We are going to have 250,000 locally assembled desks. Those big figures in wow, the government is finally working. 0719-012-600. 10 minutes to 10. Let's end with your phone calls. 0719-012-600. Good morning.
Spice FM, Malindi.
Well, let's go straight to the phone line. In the room this morning is Nuopo and Eric Lang. On the line is CT Muga. And on the phone now, calling in from Kisumu, is Sam. Sam, we are talking about the government and what how Kenyans treat the government. So the issue of trust and mistrust with the government. But how can we make sure that our government delivers to the people? Sam, good morning.
Morning, Eric and team. How are you?
Good morning.
We're well, thank you.
Yes, but you see, Eric, the issue is like City has put it very well,
Mm-hmm.
The unfulfilled promises. But you see, Ndu is saying that there should be the citizen that's watching on the government. But in the first place, citizens have voted, they have played their part.
Yeah.
With the promises that the government has given.
Yeah.
Why on earth does the government wait for the citizens to push them to do what they know they are supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
When they came in the office, knowing very well and promising that they were up to the job.
Yeah.
If your mother has promised, I'm preparing lunch for you, do you need to go and sit at the kitchen there and sit there and watch your mother cooking so that you are sure she's cooking?
Well, if it gets to 3 o'clock and you haven't eaten,
she has not cooked, you better go to the kitchen, man, or you're going to die of hunger.
And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate because
mm-hmm.
I know that's also what the citizens are supposed to do. But I think the bottom line does not start with the citizens who are supposed to push their government. Because what about if the citizens are better at pushing their government than the government itself being good at delivering?
Well,
then you can see the situation. It's not the
first thing that you do. It's not the first thing that you do, Sam. But when you've seen that this is a pattern of behavior, then you realize that, okay, and I'm not able to make a change at the ballot at this point, for example. There needs to be a raising of voices. There needs to be that there's a demand. Because if you keep quiet and get back into this cycle, then they're going to do the same thing over and over and over again. It's not the first port of call. Of course, somebody makes a promise. You ought to sit and wait and see if this is actually going to be fulfilled. If it's fulfilled, then all right. But then you get to the point whereby over and over and over again, they're telling you the same thing and they're behaving in the same manner. And Kenyans are actually sitting back and waiting for it to be done again.
I think what may have happened is our government may have been formed on a false premise. Why I say that is because if you look at governments in Europe and America, they are known to deliver. They have taken over things and they are doing them. If you go, you find NHS, National Health Service in the UK. It's delivering, it's performing because it was designed to deliver. It was designed to perform. Now, come back home. Not a single thing since independence that we can say the government has done. Look at agriculture, until now, I know even you, the team there, even at home, you either have a Maasai or a watchman somewhere you are paying for. Everything, security, food,
garbage collection.
Even, you are the minister, even in your family. You are the one everybody is looking up to. Oh, give us money for this, support us this. Because the government left everything. At some point, I think it collapsed, maybe during Nyayo times. And so that it was the church and the NGOs that were doing things. And the government sat back. What is it that they were doing? So I think our governments have not been premised on performing and on delivering.
Thank you, Sam. Let me pick up other callers so we can continue the conversation. Asante sana. Lydia, good morning.
Good morning. I have to hold on.
Go ahead. Lydia.
Oh, I see. Okay. I wanted to also add the government, the small government of our good President Kibaki did very well. They gave us tax-free ICT. So that he could introduce ICT to schools with tax-free computers, printers, UPS projectors, and mobile phones as well. And then came the violent government, the TJRC government, and nothing can really happen now. The TJRC government was only just a bloated government of no services, and this is what it is. Now, Henry Rotich, William Ruto, I want to give baby laptops, and all the tax came back again. So this TJRC government is not the right government. They are the same politicians who keep coming back and coming back and coming back, and they don't want to leave.
Thank you very much.
So this is the difference.
Thank you very much. Asante. Martin in Kisumu.
Yes, morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Martin. So, we're talking about our government and our people and the issue of trust and mistrust and distrust.
Yes. Well, I think the populace is just trying to mimic what the government is doing. So it is just a tit for tat. Because of the failed promises that they mounted during the campaign period. But now they are not doing anything about the same. For example, I happen to come from Kisumu County, where the lake is actually not forgetting where it occupied period back.
And it's reminding you.
Yes. So you see, there is a lot of flood. And the government is telling us that please, folks, move to the higher grounds. The question we are asking, those higher grounds, are they for government or for private? Because they are not specific. You cannot go to a land which is not belonging to you. So the government is lying and lamenting, lies and lamentation.
So the government is basically just telling you go, and it's not telling you where.
And
where
and for how long.
Are you getting that?
Yes.
Yeah, so they are not particular in communication.
So now the pushback that the government is getting from the people is they say, I am not moving.
And should be understood. They should understand us. Actually.
Okay.
Yes.
Martin, thank you very much for your call. Asante sana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
City.
Yes.
So now, as we conclude, now this is it. There's a complete mistrust of people versus government. People are just seeing this government is one, it's bothering us all the time. It's coming up with schemes to get money from my pocket, and yet I have willingly given what I had in my hand. So how does the government get out of this? COVID has basically just pushed the trust for government further down the scale.
Eric, it's not as though it's the most difficult thing in the world to understand what ought to be done. It's the decisive manner in which the government seems to be dealing with itself. Okay? If they could be equally decisive in ensuring that the things that ought to be done get done, meaning, as you said, I want a report on a daily basis. I want decisive. And it's followed through. Remember, part of the reason why the people who are in one group kept threatening, taunting even the president was because the president would say things, but as far as they're concerned, nothing would get done.
Right.
But we are seeing something being done now. Now, if that same attitude could be carried on to actually service delivery for the Mwananchi, then clearly things would actually get done. This thing of moving to higher ground, if you come from the Kano Plains, there is nothing like higher ground. It's all flat. Which higher ground do you move to?
It's plains.
It's plain, flat, clear. There's nothing to move. There's nothing high.
Yeah.
So when the government makes these statements, we understand what they're trying to do, but they don't follow up with the requisite actions. Now, let them take the same attitude that they are exhibiting politically to ensuring that service delivery is actually delivered to the Mwananchi.
City Muga, thank you very much.
Thanks, City.
So we'll speak again tomorrow on the show.
Yes, we shall.
Today's proverb, City,
yes,
it's from Ndu's neighborhood.
Yes.
It's from Igbo. If one does not chew water, he does not know that water has bones. Hey. Ebu explained that one. I'm just trying to think, what? Surely. Why do they have to pick on water of all things?
Well, start with the obvious. You cannot know what a situation or a journey entails until you begin it. Then you know what the terrain is made of.
Right.
Yes. So until you start, you cannot know.
You will not know.
And you cannot know the vagaries and some of the surprises that wait for you. Yes.
That's it. That's actually the meaning. Thank you very much, City Muga. Have a good one.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, CT. Talk to you tomorrow.
Bye.
End of the show. Nduako. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Talk in another 24 hours.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll be right here 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. tomorrow. Between now and 2 o'clock, uninterrupted music, sugar and spice and everything nice. The 80s and 90s have never sounded this good. And then 2 to 6, Monique will be here, Spice Drive. Then thereafter, 7 to 10, the adults in the room. Good morning. Have a good day. It's 10 o'clock.
All right, are you ready?
Cruising through the golden years on 94.4 Spice FM.